I have a friend who wasn't getting on the day. So I'm going to this.
I'll figure out. Push on the key a little bit like that. Yeah. The whole thing. Almost everything is in this binder. If you can find it in there. Let me look at this stuff at the beginning.
Do you chop stuff? Yeah,
We got that done.
all done.
Yep.
You do your own or do you hire someone?
Hire some. It's so hard to put a crew together. It's just easier to hire some.
Right. So you don't have to own that piece of equipment either.
Neighbor, Jerry,
They just were trying to keep it.
then we help them back and forth through the truck driver.
And you worry about how to do it to make things work, don't you? I mean, really don't. It makes life a lot easier, I should say.
Well, it just trying to find a tool. That's the big thing. No, they come in 12 hours. Yeah, 12 hours, and then you got them out the side.
We're gonna start here.
Is there a part in particular that you want to see?
I just got the explanation date in our contract.
That's it, the development agreement.
I just think we had it. We'll bring this meeting
I'm
to.
Jenny.
Is the judge still coming?
He is not, we have scheduled some hearings this
Okay.
afternoon, so if you had a call, and tell me anything.
Okay, we'll then call you if you want to come up to the
Work that
podium.
off.
Okay.
Bring this meeting to order. Want to review the consent agenda, is there any discussion?
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda. Stands. Who is, liaison for, library?
Me.
Have you heard anything on, the roof?
No.
Any report on if they made? We should maybe check, see if we got a date for a project date or something. I'd like to see that get done this year.
If they don't have I talked to my brother about it, he does roofing, commercial roofing, so. He basically said, in his opinion, because of the increase of everything, that they just are not doing it because they're losing their butt on their quote. So they're just not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Basically, is what he said.
So
That's what he thinks.
we're gonna have to read.
Unless we have a contract signed with them. I don't know if we've signed the contract or if it was just like a quote.
Anyway,
Yeah,
we
we
need,
just awarded it, so.
Yeah.
We never executed anything that I can remember.
and I don't know if anything that'll bind, if they agreed to the award or not, but I think we need to follow up on that a little bit, because if they're not gonna do it, we're gonna have to go forward. We can't leave that the way it is.
Okay, I'll check into it.
Okay, there is one item on the first page that we need to cross off, and that's the Welch Lot 3 under the plats. The other 3 plats we'll consider. That one had an error on it that needs to be fixed by the parties before it can be reviewed. And then, Judge Shelton's not gonna make it, but Jenny is here, so if you wanna move to that particular topic.
Sure, great.
Hi, I'm Jenny with the Unified Judicial System. Judge Shelton apologizes he can't make it. He had to schedule court this afternoon. But I'm here to request funds for a new sound system for the courtroom. Were you able to review that quote? AVI systems. So I oversee 14 counties. So I office in Brookings, but I go all the way up to Grant County or Millbank. I come down to Watertown, Brookings, and go as far south as Moody, Flanders, and Lake. So I have 14 counties in there. You're my farthest west county. My position is to oversee the clerk of court and court services pretty much, and then I serve at the pleasure of the judges so they could get rid of me at any time. Luckily, they're all good judges and I must be an okay employee. I'm still here. I've only been with the Unified Judicial System, I think about 6 years. So it was a pretty big learning curve before I came. But in talking with Doug, we have a pretty old sound system up there that hasn't even been working. So they've been holding court without a sound system. In rural counties, we have a lot of older people, and I don't mean that mean at all, but a sound system comes with assisted listening devices, which they can put on, and it just brings the sound to their ears if they can't hear the speakers and the microphones. It's really important when we have a jury trial. We haven't had a jury trial in Hayden County for a long time, but it is important for people to be able to hear what's happening in the courtroom, as well as the court reporter. She has to record everything verbatim, everything that is said in the courtroom. So the quote not only includes, we went between, the old system is wireless. Our sound system, people tell us that a wired system is better, which I can't argue with them there. We start to lose frequencies. When we have wireless systems, we have a wireless system in Brookings, just the lavalier that you buckle on, just as a system for some of our jury trials, because attorneys like to pin those on when they're walking around the courtroom. We lost the frequency to Verizon. They bought out the frequency. I don't quite understand that, but then you have to get a whole new system. So a wired system is reliable. You don't lose the frequencies. You will have some wires and cords that run across the courtroom, but they'll put those wire cord protectors on there and tape stuff down. It includes, I think, a microphone at the bench, 2 at the defense table, 2 at the prosecution table, 1 at the witness stand. I'm not sure if you're familiar, we have an ITV unit up there, which means if the judge is over in Beadle County and can't get over here to hold a hearing, they have hearing via television. The sound system would include a plug-in to that TV. So right now they're listening, if they're in the courtroom, they're listening just through the TV. The sound would then come over through the speakers in the courtroom. With COVID and the world pandemic, we have learned that we had to adapt. We did do a lot with the ITV. They also do a lot with telephonic hearings. Telephonic hearings actually save the county money instead of having an attorney drive over from Huron or maybe even Sioux Falls, charge $50 an hour plus mileage. Having a telephonic hearing for 20 minutes just on the phone or via the ITV actually saves the county money in the long run, not having to pay those attorney fees.
Do they utilize that?
They do utilize that, and I wish Judge Shelton was here. He is a little hard of hearing. In Beadle County, they didn't have the opportunity either. They had a sound system in there, but they did not have the ITV or the telephone through the sound system. We were able to do that with some COVID funds this year, the county was, and he he utilizes the telephone a lot better now because he feels like he can hear because it comes through the sound system. I did run into an issue. Judge Shelton's not the only one who covers your county. We have magistrate judges that do bond hearings. We had a magistrate judge in Brookings that needed to do a bond hearing and couldn't travel over here. So we did do an ITV hearing. On my side, I'm also working for the Unified Judicial System to pay for an FTR, which is a recording system. In that instance, none of our court reporters were available. Our magistrate judges don't have court reporters. They have what you call an FTR system. It just records their court. Since she had to do a bond hearing here, there was no FTR system in this courtroom. Our courtrooms were being used at Brookings where she was at. So we ended up she drove to Lake County, used that courtroom, recorded, and was able to do the bond hearing, but at least she didn't have to drive this amount of miles for a bond hearing.
Does this include that FTR?
That will be an expense the UJS will pay for, so we are asking for a plug-in into the sound system for the UJS to be able to provide an FTR system, which I'm trying to get the FTR systems in all 14 of our counties. It's only in like 4 or 5 of them right now, so I did make a budget ask for the UJS. And they pay that expense just because the FTR system then has to be downloaded to a network to be able to be saved, and court reporters have to make transcripts off of those notes. So that would be included. We would pay that expense, but there would be a plug-in port for that too. So I think we're thinking future. If we're doing it, we're not just pigeonholing ourselves right now to say in another 3 years we're going to need a new system. Do I know where technology is going to be in 3 years? No. But I think working with ABI Systems, they plan for the future. They would recommend even just an extra rack in there. I said no to that right now just because I don't know what our needs are for in the future, but they build that in. So if we need a new connection with a new box in the rack, you can build on it. You don't have to need a whole new system. So
Is ABI who you utilize in the other?
in most of the other ones, they've been the best that I've worked with. They actually do a lot for the Supreme Court and Peer. And when I call and say, hey, our microphones aren't working, it's within a day or two they come fix it. In other instances, they put us on the back burner. In Watertown, it's been 3 months since the phone hasn't worked. And this is not ABI who works in Watertown, and they still haven't been there to fix it.
On that price, does that include, you mentioned something about the extra hearing
It
portion?
is, yes, includes.
How many of those
I
are
think
provided?
4 in there.
4.
Mm-hmm. Which when you have a jury trial, you have 12. I've never used 4 in a jury trial from my experience, but you do have 12, sometimes even 13 jurors that sit in there. When you do voir dire, which is getting the jury, sometimes depending on the case, you have as many as 40 to 80 that sit in there. And if they can't hear the attorneys asking questions, I think 4 is a fair number. When a judge does do voir dire, they do say, please raise your hand if you can understand the English language and if you can hear me. If people don't raise their hand, then they would ask that person, do you not speak English? Can you not hear me? Can we get you an assisted listening device?
What are you looking for at a time element of this, if we were to do it?
You know, we have the quote now that's valid. If you say yes, then as a commission, you just sign off on the quote, and then I go back to ABI and say, when can you install it? From my experience since COVID, so in the last 8 months, we've probably done 4 or 5 installations with them. It's between 1 and 3 month time frame.
It isn't that any of us don't know it don't work, because we've tried to have meetings up there and that don't work. But haven't at this time really planned on spending the money on it. We're just in the budget time now, so that comes into play for us too. But not for next year, or the following year, or the following year, we can budget for it, but at this time, that's what we're really concerned about. We all know the problem because we had several people that were elderly. If you remember the last hearing we had up there, and I had 2 or 3 of them standing up next to me, hoping they could hear. And it just didn't work very good. And these were people that were truly involved in the situation and absolutely couldn't hear what we were talking about. So it didn't do us any good to move from this venue to that one because it's just a bigger venue, nobody could hear it.
Right.
So we understand the problem, we just understand the budgeting part of it, our side of it too. So.
And with statute, Judge Sheldon is authorized, you guys have that law library fund, which has traditionally been used for books. By statute, it does say it can be used for computer things and audio visual stuff for the courtroom, so I know that's half the cost, I believe, that you could use that. In Brookings, I had to write a 2-paragraph, relating to COVID, and they were able to use COVID money for it, so I don't know what you have for COVID money or I don't think your lines are any different than what Brookings would be, but they were able to use COVID money to put into sound systems.
Don't we have that, I can't think of the name of it, that fund that we got that we can use for?
We got it committed though, so, alcohol.
No.
Commissioner's contingency fund is what you're.
No, there's a fund that we got that came from the federal government for COVID, but at right now.
Oh, he's talking about that money that we're setting aside right now?
What's the name of that? Would this possibly qualify?
Nobody knows yet. Right now, I would say no, because it doesn't fit in the 4 categories, but I think they were talking about last year's funds.
Then we've got that all spent.
Yes, that's all.
We did have our alcohol and tax money already contributed this for a minute. We've already got it down.
Yeah, if you choose to do this, what we run short in either the judicial budget or the law library would be a contingency transfer through a budget supplement process.
But that is if we could use the law library fund.
Yep, which the judges are said we could. So if you look at my explanation, the law library
That would cover short.
had an August balance of $9,700, which she said is roughly half, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then if we came up with the remaining 11, we have a judicial budget, which we use usually to pay jurors and stuff.
Mhm.
And I don't know of any jury trials on the horizon. We just had a civil trial that we spent about $5,000 on. And then we have that catastrophic legal defense fund. So we obligate money in there to that. So I took that out. So if you were looking to replace those funds, you'd find $9,295 elsewhere.
That law library fund, how is that funded? I mean, how much more are we gonna
Each
give
time
them?
there's a successful prosecution, then they assign court costs. The court costs goes to the fund to keep it current.
So there's really no way of knowing how much money may not be stuck into there,
Court
obviously.
costs are very minimal, I hate to say that, but the majority of the court costs, like 90% goes to the school.
So to rebuild that fund would take
A long
a
time.
long time.
Anyway, we can budget for half of it in this year and go half of it next year, convert part of it into next year's funding. So then we can budget for it in next year's funding. Or start this project after the first of the year and then follow it into next year's budget.
Are you January to December budget?
So I mean, we're getting on the tail end of our budget anyway, so.
Right.
Well, the only bad thing about that quote won't be good.
Probably not.
Likely not.
So
So where do we have those dollars? We don't we?
Well, the most logical thing to be is you would approve it when we would do a transfer out of your contingency fund.
Which we haven't utilized in yet
No.
at this point.
But everything you said, the portal for the phone and all that will be in the system, so it's not.
And I don't know if you guys have a need in Moody County, they use our courtroom for county commission meetings, or if the county commission has to make a speaker phone call to somebody, they use that phone. It's our phone line and we pay for it, but it's people in the courthouse utilize it because it's a nice system and you can sit up in there and then hear through there, so I don't know if that would help in any way,
Our
or,
commission room is obviously pretty small here.
Right.
So if we have anything, a very big venue, yes, we do move up there. It would be nice to have a system that worked, you know, so.
and then if people needed to call in or you need to call out, they would be over the system so you could hear them and it wouldn't just be a speakerphone.
And obviously, if we paid for it, we could use it.
Well, it gets a little hairy with the state because we're paying for the phone line, and then when you have long distance for 7 hours, we have to pay for it, but I always say it's a wash.
Is it like the software that's part of that package? Is that all, I assume that's all part of that fee? Is there some maintenance costs and things that are associated with that?
You know, if something breaks down, in Brookings, we do have a maintenance contract with them. I haven't asked what that is that they pay. But in Brookings, it's a little fancier and they have these touch pads that seem to not connect a lot of the time. So I'm calling them up for that. But as for equipment, I guess in the 7 years, I've had one microphone break and it was $299. So you could even buy it off of Amazon. It's, the system itself reboots and does updates. It's not like I don't think it's like a Word and like in 5 years it no longer works, but they do have to run software on it and updates to the system.
I don't have any problem with this except for, I'm very much into budgeting for our expenditures. And, with the caseload and stuff that I think is coming up in the future, it's probably pretty important. But in the nearby, I don't know, in the next year's time, if it's that important and we can't push it off and budget for it rather than just pull it out of our contingency. And that's just kind of my 2 cents about it. I mean, yes, it's nice that half of it or part of it's getting paid for and all that, but it's one more thing that, you know, through our levy system, we only gained about 30,000 this year. So every time you turn around and spend another 10 or 20,000, you're backing yourself into a hole. And that's the only thing that concerns me, where we're not budgeting for it. We're just tapping into our contingency again at this time of year. 6 months ago, yeah, we could plan a little better or even into the next year.
So if you budget it, would it be 2023 we're talking?
2. I mean, we're right in the middle of our budget right now.
Yeah, sure, at the end.
We're at the end.
We're at the end.
Well, it's finalized.
I don't think it's gonna make help our budget out any. We're probably at a loss already. Just
Yeah, we've already dipped in a couple places already, so. Anyway, open the floor, what do you guys think? For discussion.
sounds awful, and we know it's needed.
Yeah, we've all used it, we know it's needed, that ain't the problem.
Right.
It's just that it's one more thing we haven't planned on. Seems like we find a lot of them.
We do tend to find a lot of those. I don't know how much it's gonna change in the months ahead, I guess.
If we milk everything down, like you said, to where we only gotta come up with 9,000, we've also emptied a couple of accounts there that we might have to replenish.
Right.
If things happen, we'd have to replenish them because we spent on unbudgeted items.
But we've already budgeted in this year, the 3,700, right? So we're at unless we get a jury trial in the next 4 months.
If I read this right, you have 11,000 already budgeted for this year. You have 11,000 remaining as of July 31st in your judicial budget, if I'm reading that right.
That's the first one I sent you or the second?
Mm,
Because I knew
August
the
27th.
catastrophic defense fund is in there. And
Okay,
that's $11,000 that we pay into that fund.
And we spent
And
36.
36, which leaves 7,300.
What do we spend the 36 on?
That was our expenses from the first year, John.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so your jury balance right now is the 3717.
7360.
7364.
Okay, I don't have that. Oh, wait, the reserve. So if you don't spend that this year, that will carry over?
No,
No.
No, I
the
wouldn't.
law library does. I mean, we can't touch that for any other reason but books. It's a dedicated fund to that purpose.
So how much did you say that we could pull out of the law library?
97.
97, 89, 71.
I see what you're saying too, but, so the 7364 reserved, what's the difference between that and the 3717 unassigned budget balance?
Reserve means it has a specific purpose that it's already delegated to,
Okay, it can't be used somewhere else, is what you're saying.
not without finding a different funding source for that.
Gotcha.
Basically, if you only pull 5,000 out of contingency, we could do this.
Well,
We spent 5,000 out of contingency.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind too is in item C are the things that are not included. And so if you read through that list, I mean, there's a good chance that we might have other expenses with this project that they don't cover. And we don't know what those are until they actually start the projects.
In my experience, we haven't had to pay for any of that.
Really?
But if you pull 6,000 out of reserve, and they threw 9,000 out of the judicial account, you got 16,000, you're looking for 23,000. Easy pulling. That's rounding all numbers off, right?
Right.
Because that's the way I operate.
Yeah.
Because I do crop insurance, they don't let you round nothing in that, not around. You basically pull 7,000 out of the contingency fund, and that would not wreck all your other accounts, they would still stay basically in place. Just be pulling that. Out of the 7,300 some dollars, you would.
90, I think you got 92, 90.
That's my estimate.
Yeah, easily 1,300 in your credit budget.
I'll make a motion that we go with the system.
And finance it out of contingency.
And finance it out of contingency, because that's the only way we can do it.
Feel the need to vote it on this year. Our lawyer sat there and said we're gonna have all kinds of like cases coming up.
Well, we know the system is bad. And we could push it off, but it's here in front of us now, and I think we should, that's my motion.
I'll second it.
We did get some, pardon,
Go ahead.
we did get some benefit from the state bringing fiber optic into the courthouse that we didn't have to do, that we
No, we
realized.
did ours.
What?
We did ours.
I thought, but they had already brought it into the courthouse for the judicial.
No.
No?
Venture had to bring their own.
Well, we have a first and we have a second. All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
What do you need on our half to go further? Is,
I just need
And
this,
do
I
think we need
believe,
to look at
signed.
another funding
the
source
quote.
If this could qualify.
That thing you're looking at right now.
Because we would like to have it done this year.
You would like to? Okay.
Yes, if.
Yeah,
it has some levels.
I
Yes.
will.
I guess I.
So I can email you this copy, or if you want to just sign this one today,
Yeah, if you have.
then I'll take it with me, and then what I'll do is I'll copy you on the emails to ABI saying this is signed, and
It really
we
helps.
only need the work completed by the end of the year, though.
Yes, otherwise we're gonna run into, like we always do.
On this side here,
Should
side.
have been, didn't get.
Yeah.
Washington County?
And then I'd sign it as commission president or whatever your title is.
But that would be fairly important, I think.
And then I don't know, Judge Shelton, are we off the record or whatever? I don't know if Judge Shelton talked to you that we do have a security consultant that the UJS hired. So they may be coming to ask to be put on an agenda. What they're gonna do is every courthouse in the state, they're gonna go through and just try to identify security. We're doing a good job here. The courtroom didn't used to be locked. I believe it's locked now, and either the sheriff's office or the clerk of court has to let somebody in there. In some courthouses, there's actually a sheriff or a deputy sitting at the door wanding people on court days. In Brookings and Watertown, they've gone as far as we have security at the doors and they wand every person that walks in. So I think this security consultant will kind of want to sit down with the commission and maybe the UJS at the same time and just say, hey, I've walked around your building. This is what I see. Maybe in the next 5 years, let's plan to do this. And I don't know what that looks like. I do know the UJS, thank you very much. I do know the UJS is going to the legislation asking for money to put into a security fund to help make it more secure in courthouses. I don't know what that's gonna look like, but you may have a request to be put on an agenda in the next year to meet this person. They've been hired, I don't even know their name yet. But.
When you get your side of that signed, you could let him make a copy of it, please.
Sure. I will send this to ADI, they sign this side, and then I'll let them know the work has to be done, or we won't do it this year. We have to get it done.
Good.
Thanks for your time today, and thanks for the decision. It'll be helpful.
All right.
The judge will be happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Class. Is that where we're headed?
Yes, it is. The very first one you have is the drawing plan, that's that long slender one.
I think our man's out there.
He is.
So everybody's had a chance to look at it. And so,
One in front of him.
on this particular one, this is where Eric lives, it runs to the north. On that road, then here's this county road that hangs by there.
This is where?
Eric?
Where he lives, up by Burdette.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're on that corner right
Used to be
there.
where Charlie Peterman lived.
Yeah. That looks
I
like
assume everything's in order, I guess.
14 acres or 13 acres. Just a house site there,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, house, trees.
You just plowing it off to put it in your name under.
I don't see any reason why. I guess I can make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
And first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We will get it registered for you.
Cool.
Whatever we do with them.
Okay, I'll let you know when it's time to get your copy.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay, the second one is the one for the rally site. So there's a couple different things that need to be done here. The owner's certificate needs to be done. And so if you look that over, then you would give the chairman permission to sign as the owner on behalf of the county. And then we'll move to the approval of the plat.
How many
Right.
total, 19.96 acres? That's what it's gonna be.
Is that the whole, that must be the whole thing then, huh?
That must be the whole.
I thought, we wanna. I was kind of assuming it would be a separate plat from the existing one.
I understood that the first one wasn't part of the plat, was it?
The what?
The original?
Yeah, there wasn't a plat, it was just a legal description for the first dwelling site.
Okay.
And how many acres does that one say?
Well, the whole thing is
19
19.96 acres.
My only question, my only thought was in the future, I know the state requested us talk about it anyways, about selling off the old part for them for like a shooting range or whatever, when that was discussed. So then we would have to just replat it at that time again?
Actually, the way the state has their program, you could make them a tenant, they could do their thing, and then they would still hold you harmless. The statutes provide that if they turn it into a public shooting area, you have no liability because of your generosity.
But we would still maintain ownership of it.
Well, for the rebel site and the new rebel site, we're responsible for that forever if we use it as a rebel site. Anything that surfaces, anything, so you'd want that platted separate from any other piece of land, wouldn't you?
That's a good question.
Because you're responsible forever if you use it for a rebel site. Anything that surfaces, I don't care if somebody else, if you sold it to somebody else and then something surfaces, you're gonna go fix it. That's my understanding.
That might be an elder question.
So if you don't have it platted separate, then you're hooked onto a different piece of property. I don't,
So then it would all be, if it's platted all together, it would be all one property.
yeah, so if somebody else ends up owning this part, and you sold this part to somebody else, you have to go back through the process. You're always gonna be responsible for that rebel site, as well as the one we got right now, whether they make a shooting range out of it or whatever, or we're selling it to part of the golf course, we're still gonna be responsible because it's a rebel site. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't have it done right now and have it over with, is my opinion. But I might be thinking totally over the edge too, I don't know.
That's a good question, though.
Are you talking about just the shooting range?
Yeah, that part really don't concern me, it's just the ownership of the land and who's responsible for it. We know we're responsible. Even if we trade a title with somebody else, we're gonna maintain that responsibility as part of the sale. That's what it was explained to me. Once a rebel site, always a rebel site. It's kind of like down in Flint, Michigan, or wherever you want to go, when they buried something somewhere, and they put a golf course over the top of it or what. It still reverts back to that, was permitted to be a rebel site or a lease site. So I don't know, that's my question, I'm trying to put a hold up on questions thing. Because we're only talking about actually 10 acres, right?
The
That
purchase.
we added.
Yeah.
But when they surveyed both sites together.
Right.
So as of right now, it's all platted and considered to be rebel site.
Which it is.
Yeah, that's,
That's it.
and that's the way it should be, in my
Well,
opinion.
one parcel, but if we decide to sell that rebel site, all that part that's all used up, or put it to a different use or something, it'd be tied in with the one we just bought. Which I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, that's just
It
a
would just be a
question.
replat of that portion, right, Suzie?
What?
If they sold a sliver of that, you just replat that sliver, right?
Well, you would have to.
And maybe that's the way to do it too, I'm not saying.
Like I said, I think that might be a question for Elton.
We're gonna have
See
to,
what his,
if this isn't right, we're gonna have to replat it now anyways. I would guess.
Yeah,
I mean, at this point, right?
but as long as we got ownership in all of it and we're still using all of it, maybe it's.
Well, I was gonna say, we're using this part at whichever way it goes. We're still using the old rubble site and
Yeah.
we're needing a new one, so.
And if we decide to, like Doug said, down the road, if we decide to grant or lease or a user option on that thing, we wouldn't relinquish ownership anyway. We just let them use it.
I know Jeff told me he plans to use the surface basically from where Ty's shop is to the east for his rock and stuff like that. You probably plan on burning trees over there still, don't you?
See, the new piece is just gonna be for checking over about
And we still got another year or so on the old piece to use it. Yeah, I'm probably getting out of sorts. Okay. And
So we got a motion to do the,
I'll move to approve.
okay, me to sign it for,
As the owner.
as
Representative.
I'll second it.
I'm giving the chair. All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carried. So you need this done before I can sign?
Yep. And then the next part is Yeah, you can go ahead and sign where those stickers are. And then tonight, we'll take this to the city council and get their blessing on it.
That all of it?
On that sheet.
Does he need a motion to sign? Do we have to make two motions?
You will, once he gets them all signed, then you can approve the plat itself.
What they do when I get kids that can't
Recursive.
print. I like to look at every page. How many copies of you got?
Because I should, I don't know how many you have, I need a new one,
We got rid of
copies,
it.
that's all I
Yeah,
need.
the other copies disappeared.
Okay,
I'm not sure why Zach gave us some.
well, that's just what he does. Every guy, or every surveyor has their way. Now we're short on another one, so maybe there's just 3.
I do think this is a good move on our part, getting ahead of the game a little bit. Glad it was available.
Okay, so then the last function on this particular one is the approval of the county. So once you approve that, then I sign it. So that would be your next action to take, is to approve the plat.
I'll make that motion. We approve the plat.
Second,
Hamm County Rebel Site in addition in the southwest quarter of section 2, township 112, range 68, west of 50 in Hamm County, South Dakota. Got a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Send me your way. The last one is that pepper, which is the small one with the clear. It was like a 10, 11, or 8.5 by 14.
Does he have a permanent marker for that Maywire?
He signed it with me then.
Well, the next one.
Okay.
Hey,
I'll see the next one.
It wasn't there. It wasn't there, unless it was in there.
This is the third.
Okay, so this is Heber. This is Haber. This is just to the east of Zell. There's that farm place that is on the south side of the road there.
Where they always have the auction every year.
Was there?
Yeah. Is that too far east?
I think so, I don't, yeah, he doesn't have options.
Luther's always have a,
Yeah, so once you approve it, then you would sign there. So I'll go grab the other copies. That's what I had in here already.
This is JJ, this is the dad, right? Favorite,
I think so.
not John Paul, this kid.
that's the old, east of the old church.
John Paul, that's the John.
It's about mile out of
That's
town,
just
yeah,
for the main-
right on Cabot line.
On the south side of the highway.
Yep,
Yeah.
long driveway.
Yep, big, great big rock with the name on it out by the highway.
Yeah, you go wait.
The house,
Motion?
the house and stuff has been there for quite a while. They're just,
I'll second.
Approve the plat.
All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carried. Glad you didn't have him. Robert got that. You want this sign too then?
Yep, each one. It goes out our way.
See if that, the both things signed, we can see.
There's 4 pages on this one.
If you want to sign the minutes, I'll get them out of your hair as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're all way behind again. I think. I know.
Oh, there's one executive session about.
We probably will, because I know Jim wants to talk about something legal wise. So.
Okay, we'll add that to the agenda then.
Okay, the provisional budget hearing is scheduled for 2:00 sharp, so if you want, we can move to this lower portion of that on page 2. There's the table. And this is a request that I'm bringing to reinstate where we apply 1/2 of the CPI to the base rate, so that each year it doesn't just sit there unattended. We did this for a couple of years and then it kind of fell to the wayside. And then Luke had made a comment about whether using 1/2 of it is better than using all of it or vice versa. So basically what this is, it's just designed to keep the base wage from becoming stagnant. And it keeps it moving forward, so you don't have to make big corrections like we did the last time when we went from $12 and change for new hires to 14.
Discussion.
My feelings on it, we should just use the whole CPI. Because the whole CPI isn't gonna move that much every year. And that's just for starting base pay, right? Because the CPI is given to all the employees at the full rate. So I myself, just to try to keep in, okay, we'll just take the very top line. By doing 1/2 the CPI, you're getting 8 cents. If you did the whole thing at 16. So I mean, we're not making great big jumps.
But it keeps our starting wage in line.
Well, it keeps it moving
At
up
least it's coming
A
somewhat.
little bit.
a little bit. I mean, it's not moving up a great amount. That's why if you go 1/2, it's like it's moving, but it's not moving very much.
It does get kind of harsh when you have your base wage, your lowest wages is $14 going across the board, but your base starting wage is 10. It's never moved. Well, it's hard to get a new hire, because you're gonna have to live with that for 6 months to a year.
Right.
Before it bumps up. But maybe that would help a little bit.
And, I apologize for not putting it in my email, but that $18 for a starting wage is non-certified. Did that matter?
No, because these are,
Certified is $1 more.
they have their own classification and your scale.
Okay.
I guess I would say I guess I would agree with you, and I would just stick with the 1 point, the CPI, then we're not, it's more uniform as well, I guess, across the board, I would think.
So if you guys like this, what I would do is come back next month with a resolution to make it more visible in the records.
Okay.
And then,
But you're gonna bring it back in as the CPI is what it's going to,
if that's your consensus.
well, that's my thoughts on it.
I know from a standpoint of being somebody that wants, if you wanted to attract an employee, that helps. That they can see that there's movement there and that they're not just sitting on our hands at times, waiting for this. So, is that a consensus?
Consensus, bring it back to the, what is this one, October meeting. Do we have time to do the rubble site? You got more than 10, 15 minutes? I'll put it. I hate to see a busy man sitting waiting on me.
I was just gonna do about a winter hour type deal.
How have your hours worked out so far, the way you set it up? Do you think it's fairly successful, or people
I think
saying
so.
much?
Huh?
Are you getting any comments, or?
They seem to like it, well, they especially like being open a lot more, you know. And you just get a lot of the construction guys just come in all the time now.
Same hours, just varying days of the week,
Well,
1 week to
it's
the next.
40 hours, but then, like for the winter, then we get away from having a part-time guy for the winter time, so that we can save some money. And then it'll be every other Saturday is what I was proposing, if I didn't have a part-time guy. Just so I wasn't out there every Saturday of the month.
You get a lot of foot traffic on Saturday?
It varies. Some Saturdays are busy, some aren't. And most of the Saturdays is trees. A lot of trees come in, so I don't know if wintertime trees are coming in as much as summertime.
And part of that's new to me too, so. Summertime, I see everybody drive out of town every weekend. Campers and boats and everything. Pretty much everybody leaves, but
Did you talk about when you want this to start?
Yeah.
Yeah, October
October 1?
through April 1.
You get hold of Colony about a sign.
Well, that's part of it too, so I can get that put on there too.
I just assume you manage the deal. I do, the Saturday deal is pretty important to a lot of people, but you got a better feel of that than I would ever have.
And it's every other Saturday. There's always gonna be somebody disappointed that it's not open at some time if we don't have the additional help. I motion we approve it, and if it doesn't work out, we'll have to change it.
Change it back.
I'll second it. I think you got a good plan there. If you can save us some money by not having a person out there, why not go with it? I mean, it's a service we provide to the county,
Correct.
and it doesn't say that we have to have it open
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
And
My thought was the part-time people okay with that?
Yeah,
I mean, whoever's,
they don't be out there, it's cold either.
yeah.
I think consensus would be good enough.
I don't think it needs
He's
motion.
the one running the deal, but we have a motion on the floor in a second, but made a consensus, we can handle this. But we have it that way. Did you write down the motion?
Yep.
And like I said, if people are complaining about not, needing more hours or something like that, we can adjust to whatever people want.
I'll bring it back to this, if you don't have labor force enough for it, you don't have. Well, first and second on the floor, so we'll go ahead and vote. I need hours to be approved for the winter time hours.
If,
All in favor?
I,
Opposed?
and if that second Saturday becomes a big deal, we'll have to throw a part-time guy in there every other Saturday.
Yeah, we'll bring it back to us.
Or a later evening or something one night a week. If it's,
Yeah, if you wanna, like I can do later evenings.
well, we'll just see. I mean, it just might as well.
You know what, you just run.
Is there anything else come to surface out of your inspections and stuff? Have you had one yet?
Haven't had another one yet, but the other one went okay.
Good.
But, we're planning on doing the tires next spring.
Okay.
So then I can get, like, tires coming in from the city and stuff like that. And I already talked to the guys up in Pier about it.
I have quite a few people in the country that would really like to know when that tire deal is, because it's getting harder and harder to get rid of them.
Yeah.
You only need so many no honey signs hanging on it. But if there was some way possible, let people know that, I think there's a lot more people know.
Yeah, we're gonna have like a whole month thing where we collect tires.
But I think we talked about, you kind of have to limit it, though, don't you? Don't you have to limit it anyway, so,
Limited.
like so many?
Yeah,
So
we
someone
can't,
doesn't
I
bring
mean,
in
we
4,000
can't have
tires.
we can't have the big tractor tires coming in there like,
No, but
you
like,
know,
personal tires, not a company haul,
right.
whole semi.
And then you can't have, like I said, 4,000 tires come in and, because that's, then we gotta come up with 20% of the cost, so if that's 20%, I mean, we're gonna need,
You gotta make sure that it's hand county license plates on it.
I know a lot of ones I've heard on the radio and stuff are, you can bring in 10 tires or whatever it is, like, some kind of a number associated with it.
You get quite a few of these older couples and stuff that got 6 tires that thought were ultimately valuable in their garage, but after a while, they just get broken. But cost some money to get rid of them. Anything else, sir?
unless you guys got something for me.
You gotta let us know what's going on out there, because we have no way to know, so if it's going good.
But like you said,
bad,
we're
you
like,
let us know.
maybe getting a shooting range built or a berm built. Like I got a bunch of that tree, the stuff that don't burn very good. I can make a berm out of that and just cover it up with clay and make a, great big line for a berm. Would work good for a shooting range or can get it cleaned up.
Stack them tires.
Yeah, I could use all tires there.
Part of the season, you get in there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we gotta be there at 7. City.
Yeah, they got, at the beginning of the meeting, they got stuff to take care of, so.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ty.
We got just a few minutes, you got anything to fit in here before 2? How about a break until 2 o'clock? I like the way you think. Hurry.
Damn it. I saw that.
Well, I didn't get them stuck in your hair once, so. Plus more hair, all my hair with my glasses.
I tried,
Need some white lithium maybe,
I,
keep it from running away. What'd you use?
I sprayed the tilt deal underneath there too, plus the,
Well,
Sweet.
I need 300 pounds. So it might not squeak for somebody that weighs half that.
well, we just gotta find the spot that squeaks.
Actually, this chair is very uncomfortable.
These other ones quieted down though, there were a couple of them that were squeaking.
Yes, they do. Well, the safety guy doesn't like those chairs because they only have 4 outriggers. You're supposed to have 5 to be
Really?
safety compliant.
Yep.
Tough. We like our chairs.
Yeah, actually, for their age, they're really comfortable.
Want to push them around,
No.
switch one for the rest of the meeting?
No, the only thing that makes them uncomfortable is these arms. No, like man spread. I'm guessing we're gonna fare better with our budget hearing than the city did. We had several people asking questions. You were there, right? Yeah, what would you say, half a dozen people raised questions?
Oh, yeah, at least. And there was, some people that are asking for donations and stuff, so there was those there as well. There was probably 12 of them.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. They didn't like me, but we still on camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went clear to Denham on Friday, Bellflower. My wife was along with me because it's a pretty long road trip. We could look out across the prairie on a couple 3,000 acre pasture. I'd say there's a real good chance if you drop your billboard, you'd be able to find it. You can see bumps of cactus and that's all you can see, that is dry. And it's in tough shape. Most of the cattle you see are in the pastures where the windbreaks are. You know they're in winter pastures, they've already went to that. Rain and have more pastures, so they winter pasture a lot up there. So that country's been pretty well empty out. There's land in North Dakota, as far as livestock. A lot of burn up corn about this.
Yeah.
Most of it's irrigated.
I can't get that much irrigated up there, is there?
Yes, get up towards Renewal,
Is there?
all up that in Bell, along the Belfoot River, that's all irrigated, all hay grass in there. And of course, they rotate a little corn in and out, but most of the keep it alfalfa as best they can, because they don't have the body of water to support a big crop, so it's more of a supplement deal. But they're just got hay again right now off the irrigation. That's the don't have very problem. A lot of these never got harvested. Standard bean. She's dry. All right. Back to the budget.
Okay, I'll read an excerpt from the notice that was published in the paper. The provisional budget hearing scheduled for 2:00 for the purpose of considering the foregoing provisional budget for the year 2022 and various items, schedules, amounts, appropriations set forth therein, and as many days thereafter as deemed necessary until the final adoption of the budget on the 21st day of September 2022. Now, I inserted the 21st of September because it is a Tuesday, but ultimately you guys are going to decide if that's the date you want to adopt the budget. At such time, any interested person may appear either in person or by representative, will be given an opportunity for full and complete discussion of all purposes, objectives, items, schedules, appropriations, estimates, amounts, and matters set forth and contained in the provisional budget. And then it did appear in this format. This is the spreadsheet format in the Miller Press, this past publication. And basically what this is everything that you had worked on in adopting is transferred into this. And then this is what you plan on spending. The second page, how you plan to finance it. And so I did have to make a change here because originally not on this particular copy, because this is what Jan got. This 25% cities, I was looking for a clarification on that, and I got it. So basically, this first line, 311, times 25%, and then that's a portion to the 3 municipalities, well, 3.25, because the Weston Annex is included. Other than that, it's pretty much in its original form, so if there's anybody from the public that wants to address you guys about questions, I'm here to help you. And then we would come back, hopefully, if you approve the 21st, at which time you'll adopt this resolution, which turns the provisional budget into the adopted budget for next year.
I don't see anybody from the public here, but I entertain a motion for the 21st to be our set of times.
I'll be here if that folks, I don't know if that's a concern.
As long as there's 3 of us.
Actually, everybody will end up signing it, so the more, the merrier.
He can't be here. Jim might not be here.
Well, you can pick a different day, I just pick one.
That week, I can't do it all that week.
It doesn't have to be a Tuesday or anything, whatever works.
Not particular, no. It just has to be done before the last day of the month.
You're gone that entire week?
Yes.
What about the week before, 16th, 17th?
Yeah, should be around.
If you don't take any other business, I mean, literally that,
I'll be gone on the 17th.
you show up, approve it, and leave.
15th or 16th?
Or do you wanna wait till the week after, or is that?
The sooner the better.
Don't want to cut it that tight.
Because then I have to send it to Pier, then they have to certify that they received it. And we don't want to be late.
We can do an evening.
I would
Is
say.
that
If anybody doesn't see a problem, let's go to the 16th and leave.
16th, is that a Wednesday? Yeah.
Thursday.
7 o'clock.
Well,
Wednesday the 15th,
that'd be better. That'd be better for me.
Wednesday the 15th, Luke, you got any?
Works for me.
Right now, we're in pretty well in consensus, so we're not gonna move this budget anyway, right? That's a consensus.
Right.
there.
To change it.
To change,
Right.
we have no consensus to change it, it's just whether we had any rebuttal that we need to consider. So, will that work for you, Jim, the 15th?
Yep,
What time?
27 in the evening? Think?
yep.
Past the supper hours, that's fine, you're going earlier, I just threw a number up to get us off center. Everybody's punching their phone with me, I'll be the one that don't show. As long as 3 of the rest of you do, we'll be all right. You want that motion for him?
To set the date? No, I think we're fine.
So we're gonna do it the 15th, right?
That's
At 7.
15th at 7?
You already punched your.
I already put in the 16th.
Or was it the 16th?
No, it's 15th.
What's 15th? Wednesday.
On Wednesday. Yeah, I'm going to church.
So we can let the minutes reflect that nobody asked any questions during the public hearing?
No questions come from the floor.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess that concludes the public hearing portion now.
And we go, I couldn't remember. Should go to my phone and do it. 7. Okay. Yep, Jeff, Sean, Scott?
Maybe Doug, if you could remember sitting on the finger.
Yeah, I forgot this today.
I might be Jeff, you right.
Well, that's, just send a reminder. I can usually make it as long as I remember.
Oh, you got me too far in advance and I forget it again.
That's a problem.
So, I guess as far as the small structure funding, DOT we went to that meeting, Jim was there, Doug was there. But the first portion of money that they allocated was that, part of that was supposed to go for doing the inventory. I don't know how you guys think, but Brad Staggert has already taken all the inventory in the townships and the county and secondary roads. I think it just makes sense to have him take care of the inventory for us on the small structures, townships included. And the way I understand it, they have to have a resolution passed, but I'm assuming we will too. At some point, they'll probably send us something. We could probably mirror off of that somehow, but I think Brad would even probably take care of that. But that would get us in compliance. For now, their mostly main concern is getting an accurate inventory, and then the second part of that funding will be more towards what your needs are, I guess. So,
Did Brad cover even the townships that are not participating in the signage?
no, he didn't. He just counted the ones that
So he would have to come back and so that would be at our expense?
Yes, I would assume so. Well,
Because the townships are gonna be covering it, through this funding. Well, the signage project will be covering it, because he's basically inspecting culverts and is he actually doing an accounting or analysis and documenting all these culverts and their conditions?
yes, he, as part of doing our signing, he said that he's there anyhow, take care of the signing, and while he was there doing it, he would inventory all the small structures, he'd take pictures and evaluate them, and measure them. So they got all this information already gathered, it's just a matter of putting it on their format. So I would assume it'd be pretty accurate. I went out a few years ago and they was talking about small structures, and I got the inventory, but I didn't get the GPS location on all of them, and he will have that. It's pretty time consuming to go out and get all that done.
Sure it is.
He's already got it.
So most of that cost will be accredited to the signage program, then we won't pay him to go out and inspect all the townships in the county for our benefit. The cost will be accredited to the signage program.
Well, he basically did it as a favor to us, I guess, because he was out there. That was part of the agreement when I chose Alltake to do it, because this is what they offered. They would, I don't know if they saw this coming down the pike or what.
Basically, he's gonna hand over that layer of what he found, from culverts and all that, he's got it on it.
He's got it all.
He's got it loaded on a map, he's gonna hand that layer over to us.
Yeah.
That's the way I understood it. Back to the GIS deal.
Yeah. So I would say for a small fee, he would go ahead and put it on their GIS system and have it all, so they've got it and it's accurate.
I would think that'd be a lot more accurate wandering around the county trying to do it.
Absolutely.
Would be more me doing it anyway.
Or a bunch of farmers doing it themselves,
Yeah.
because that's what they've been pushing townships.
That's what used to happen all the time.
Yeah, to inventory your culverts every year and inspect them. And our township, even though we do a pretty good job of taking care of stuff, we haven't got that done yet,
This time.
Can that layer, as you're talking about layer in GIS, can that layer be retroed in or laid in with the GIS system we're working with over here?
Should be.
Should be able to, right? As long as he's willing to.
As long as he's willing to fork it over.
Right.
And if he says he's gonna do it for minimal, I would guess it'd just be his
Just-
time of rolling it over. That'd be my guess. I guess if it's gonna be a big number, we need to know, Jeff, you know.
Sure, I'll make sure you know what that number is.
If it can, we found out that the money that we've received already can be used to pay that portion, right, for building.
Yeah, this first funding is for mostly getting your inventory in line.
Yeah, so we can just,
If he charges $500 or $1,000, it would be no big deal, we just pay him.
Right,
with that money.
there's money dedicated to that purpose.
But if it ain't got so much of culverts throughout the county and township, they could afford for something. Not saying that is, but
One other thing we discussed at the Hawaii District meeting over here at Highmore the other day, Miller Township and Logan Township came to us last year about that bridge down there by Fulton's feedlot. And I don't know, it was Brad or somebody suggested maybe doing a hydraulic study there. Is that something that we should do? And I don't know how much of this, what was 75,000 or whatever we've got? Is that correct? Around 75,000 for this, constructing this inventory. That bridge is likely gonna end up having to be replaced. It's not repairable, I don't think. So, and that flow, when Don Pugh and I talked about it, he goes, yeah, the bridge deck is only 19 or 19 and a half feet, which makes it not a county responsibility. He said, but I'll bet you it's 20 feet and might not be that much, but it's a long ways. I went and looked at that bridge. It's a long ways from that bridge deck to the bottom of that creek because it's deep and narrow and it flows a lot of water. They said they've seen it clear up to the bottom of the bridge. And so maybe a hydraulic study, if there's funding left in that 75,000 that they've directed for this inventory, a hydraulic study there is probably a good idea to find out
determine what needs to be put in.
what needs to be put in there. If we can put in culverts, or if it has to be box culverts, or if it has to be a bridge again, or what. But I would suggest, being we've already had a request from 2 townships to address that location, that we should hopefully get a good enough plan put together to get it approved out of that next $3 million.
I don't know where that falls the line against our county bridges that are going in. That'd be probably on a side deal with townships, but is there some way, I wonder, with that GSI, if townships could just break out their part of that when he lays that layer in on all that inventory? If a township, some way could just break out like Logan Township out of it and pull that.
Are you talking about funding the?
No, just the inventory, their inventory, individual inventory.
Actually, the money we got now will cover that.
So
It's permissible to do countywide.
So, yeah, but if each township could get a report of what their share of,
Oh.
you know what I'm saying, like Rose Hill Township, how many bridges now. So that township gets a report, this is what's in your township, including that bridge he's talking about. And then where are we gonna go with that for a plan? We're gonna have a 5-year plan as far as spending our bridge and road money.
No, that's a very good idea.
I would think you'd be able to do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I created a separate web portion on the township's webpage where I put that information now on the rural access infrastructure. So we can not only send it to them, but we can have it here so anybody can see it at any time.
So if we deemed it necessary to put like a bridge or something like that in, that was in correlation with the township, I don't know how that works. But I know we've had this discussion a million times. Yes, them aren't our responsibility, but if it's gonna break that township to fix it, we're gonna get it anyway. So we just will figure out how we're gonna do it.
They've also made pretty clear from the start that just like this big fund, that we pass the wheel tax to be able to access that big fund, they've made it pretty clear that they want the townships to have that road maintenance tax maxed out at 50 cents per thousand of evaluation, or to have an opt-out to show that they are at least attempting to be responsible for their roads and not relying entirely on the state and the federal government or the county to take care of stuff for them. So I don't know how we address that, but our townships need to be aware that they're gonna have to start taxing themselves a little bit more. It doesn't amount to a lot of money, but it shows good faith that you're attempting to at least attempting to take care of your stuff, even if you can't fund it
Well,
all.
I think that's why the state is right about making you first make an inventory of what you got, so you know what you have to take care of. It just makes perfect sense. But if we could give that back to each township, that would, I think that'd help you at the township level, like, you know, well, this is what we got, because I think it'd open some guys' eyes of what's there in the townships. I know it opens our eyes when we look at the county.
And this program is, they would like to see those opt-outs or road maintenance tax in place. And so I asked the lady, I said, so if the townships can only impose that tax at their annual meeting at the first part of March, that's the only time they can impose that tax. So if they wait until, we're doing this project now, we're putting together the groundwork for this project now. I said, if they enact that tax at their March meeting in 2022, that tax doesn't go into effect until 2023. I said, are they still going to qualify by getting that tax in place in March? And she goes, that's something I didn't think of that. That's something we're going to have to clarify, because they're still, my understanding, they're still kind of working to clarify parameters of this thing, but the townships are gonna have to take on some responsibility if they're gonna keep asking the counties and the state and the federal government for money.
If I can intrude a moment, what I put on the screen, this is Grant County, the town in the middle is Millbank. After they did a big chunk of theirs, this is the map that comes back. So each of these boxes represents a structure that was inspected and contains data. And that's very similar to what we're gonna get back. And so not only can you see it as a whole county, but you can break it down in each township as well. And then, let's say somebody at a township level has one of their own precision planning GIS programs, they theoretically could load this in there themselves and use it however they fit. Yeah, this is, when I was visiting with one of the other participants, they told me, well, go look at Grant County. This is what you end up with. So I mean, like this structure here, even tells you what its number is, and then it's a 6 beam, people loads, dimensions of it. So it's pretty slick, all the information that they can put out there. So it should be pretty useful for a long time.
Those dollars that, for inventory purposes, are they only available for that? Or if we only use 10,000 of it for inventory purposes, because it's already done a lot of it, can the other 65 or whatever be used for bridges?
That's the way I understand it.
Or whatever you want to, buy whatever you want to use.
Yeah, as long as you get your requirements accomplished at the beginning.
Okay,
The signs look the same, pretty much the same way. You can click on those boxes and with it's a sign, it'll show you the stop sign, which direction it's facing. It'll tell you how many signs are facing the sun, how many are facing north. There's a lot of good information on this. It'll bring up the pictures of the culvert or bridge, whatever it is. And then it'll have the condition. They did a lot of work on it, so it's.
So is it every culvert? Or are they gonna
You
be
know,
certain
they
size?
said they were gonna do all of them. He said, no, they might miss one that's been buried for years, a 2-footer or something. They're gonna miss those, but anything 5 foot, 16 square feet or larger is the only thing that qualifies for the small structure. So they won't miss any of those.
Oh,
They
so
will,
it's not gonna be every culvert that's in the road.
it'll be all of them they can see.
Yeah, they can
But,
see.
you know, we only need to report for the small structures, anything over 16 square feet. But
but if he sees a 3-foot culvert there, he's putting it on.
yeah, you'll know you've got it and it'll be GPS and you'll know where it's at.
All right, Jeff, what's next?
The 5-year plan we had some small adjustments to make on it. So we did that last week. Brad and I sat down and we got our certification the next day from DOT. So our 5-year plan has been approved and accepted. So we won't have to have a public meeting or return it again till next August, I think, is when we'll do it. It's gotta be in by October 15th. So that's pretty much taken care of at this point.
So you just have a yearly annual update to
Annual.
that 5-year plan, just keep
Yeah.
adding on to it.
Yep, and then there'll be amendments and along the way, because
Some
there'll
will,
be changes.
yeah, some will fall off, get done, and some will get added on.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
They keep spending the money, I hope so.
that's pretty much handled. There's this meeting, and Safety Benefits is having a meeting, I'd like to have permission to go to that. And also the Region 8 meeting, I don't know if you've seen anything on that, Doug, I got that. I brought that up, I'll hand it to you. It's October 17th through the 19th, I believe. I'll get it to you. And on the striping, is that okay?
So does the state not always give you the option of using them? They must not, they're busy enough, they won't. It says they're not available there.
For what's
They're,
that?
the striping.
They're always available till this year. They had a factory burn up or something in Texas and they cannot get paint. So we did Hyde County's road and our section of that road that joins up 12 miles over there, and we did 1.5 miles in Pine Moore, and we did 8 miles of new overlay north of Ree Heights that we'd like to paint. And I talked with Mike over in Hyde County, and his commissioners are pretty concerned about putting a stripe, at least a center stripe on their end of the road, but they didn't think it made much sense if they paint there and then they get to the high end of the county and the cars isn't painted, so they're wondering if we would, because there's a private guy out there that'll come and paint these, it's a little higher.
How much a little higher, 10% higher, 5%?
Oh, no, it was almost double. I got the number here, can you dig it out for you?
This one right here, Traffic Solutions,
Yeah, that's the one.
12 grand.
12 grand, usually we can paint, I think I got 16 or 14 miles on there. Typically, we paint 30 miles for that same money.
So is it needed?
Oh, yeah. It's gonna be unmarked.
It's unmarked now.
Yeah, it's
We
unmarked.
got the signage up for Mark.
I don't yet, but if that was the other option to go and put no pavement marking signs up. They were more concerned about it. I guess they're not used to not having it done. They just got the 7 miles down there. They had a mobilization fee on there, and they would knock some of that off if we would do our end too. It was 6,000, they knocked it down to just over 4,000. They should have knocked it in half.
I don't know, does it save our expense? Do you think, or does it make a difference?
Well, on that particular road, it's got some big hills on it, and it's pretty well traveled, it's a crossroad for all the campers and people coming out of here. There's a lot of traffic on that road. I can see their concern.
The state didn't give you any well, in 3 months or 5 months, or we might be able to do it or anything like that.
No, they usually do it this time of year, and it's just, you gotta enter your information now, and then next year they'll put their plans together, and then they'll have a pre-construction meeting, and then they'll start. They would have been painting by now, but they don't have any product. So they're talking about painting double next year. Never heard any that from anybody that sent anything out, but I heard that, so I don't know if that's true. But I would probably submit what we didn't get this year and then resubmit what's coming up.
So double's kind of hard.
That's a lot.
It's kind of hard.
But safety,
Yeah, and one extra.
one accident and we can be paid.
Well, we're gonna spend the money to post it, because we won't pay if we don't post it.
Yeah, for 12,000.
And you think you'll knock it down from that 12,000?
This is what I negotiated down to this.
Or you negotiate down to that?
Yeah. He knocked a couple grand off. I couldn't get into the budget anymore. But
Can you buy him a bucket of paint?
That's
Cause realistically, that's only a year, right? I mean,
Yeah.
probably.
If for some reason they didn't get to it this fall, we'd be waiting on them to do it next year anyway. But it's gonna cost us some money to go out and post it too.
He wanted to come next week and do it, but I didn't let him come next week because I'm chip sealing today, and I wanted to at least go through a week before it was painted, so. I pushed him off that far, but he is gonna paint it right away, the way he sounded.
Up to you guys. Any more discussion? Do you think it's smart to wait, Jeff? Or do it?
Money wise, yes, safety wise, we have to keep a reasonable degree of safety out there too. For $12,000, it's double, but
We'll get the same old speech and make given for the last month.
yeah,
We only increased our revenue by 30,000 this year, every time we poke out for 5 or 10. Obviously,
pretty
that didn't go very far then. Whose budget is that? Hold on.
Be
Your
the,
road budget, your road budget, or your budget?
yeah, come out of professional service.
You need a motion for that?
Yeah. Oh, we know, I guess safety wise, we know more than this. You think you're better off doing it though?
Yeah, well, I signed it and sent it in, but I can put a stop to it, but I did it so his planning, what he wanted to know. You can exit off, it's just as easy, but. Probably, I think we should probably do
Well, what we're really discussing is dollars versus safety, it's,
You can't put a price on
it.
either.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
it.
What hurt you hitting for another couple thousand? Wait till it's right to the line.
He's pretty.
Make your wages for the day. So what we
I
decided?
didn't understand the mobilization so quickly. It kind of made me upset because what his equipment costs. It's still always mobile in my mind.
You still have that sheet?
It's on the back side of that first one. There's information, and it's on the email too.
I mean,
He's
the one
driving
right
it.
straight.
What's that?
It's on a truck. He's driving it in.
He's already here.
I signed one and sent it to him.
I mean, he's,
I wanted him to get it all.
I think he knows that he's the only one.
Because I can get it on later.
Okay, can you just give me a copy of what you said?
Yeah, I'll get it back.
One, the lane was a little tight.
Yeah, we'll make it a little tight, one that's nice and wide. There's DPS must.
And you approved his attendance at those 2 conferences, correct?
Just as a
I'll
consensus.
get the upgraded one. That's the latest one. But I'll get the one that I signed. I'll just send it up to you.
you want this, you don't want it?
I think he wants to sign one.
I'll give it to Doug. I think that's all I've got.
Let's see. Where are we going from here?
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
I'll be right back. Yeah.
All right, I've got several things to hand out for your information, and the last thing to hand out is an explanation if you'll just take one and pass it on around. Here is, the first sheet I'm passing out is an estimate from the scaffolding company. The second one is from the plastering company.
Oh.
And Dan, if you want some copies, I'll get you, but there's nothing to sign. The last one there I'm handing out is from, the next one is from the painting contractor. And then the next thing I'm handing out to you is a sheet from a draft of, just a draft of a grant application for the Deadwood Society for, if we could get some money for the third floor courtroom. I'm handing that out, a couple of reasons. I want to ask your guys' permission to pursue the grant from the Deadwood Society. And it also, down at the bottom, explains what all is going on here. It's a good synopsis. We have been talking about the plaster work on the third floor, and then we had the plumbing leak down in the assembly room. All of that adds up to a bunch of plastering work to be done. And in one sense, in my mind, we've got three contractors. Originally, we were going to have Midwest Construction be the general contractor. In one sense, it's one big project, but we need to divide it up into three. I've discussed this at some length with Commissioner Palmer. You see the total, that's a big number, $135,055 for all of it. Looking at, now that we can divide that up, and I have there, into three areas. The first floor assembly room is that is all insurance. And I had spoken with the insurance adjuster who actually, he tells me he's also the subrogation department for the insurance company. And they are going to be pursuing subrogation against Midwest Pipelining, at least their insurance company. I don't know how that's going to work out, but they'll work that out. Then there, of course, there is the rotunda, the rotunda and the third floor public areas all around the balcony up there. And that total comes up to $100,821. By my estimation, we would be on the hook for $54,047.50 of that. The insurance company would be responsible for $46,773.50. Now, of course, as we get into these numbers may change some. And then the third floor courtroom, we would be on that would be all on us. Now, the question I asked this question of the insurance company if it ever comes up. The reason that we're doing plaster work up in the courtroom and painting is because we had leaks. Now, we had leaks in the rotunda, but the rotunda damage, the water damage in the rotunda is covered because it happened because of hail. It hailed on the skylight got damaged, water came through the skylight, that's covered. The water that came through the roof over multiple years to damage the plaster up in the courtroom was because of maintenance. We repaired those. The leaks happened, we repaired the leaks, and eventually we replaced the roof. On our commercial policy, on some homeowners policy, a lot of homeowners policy, that would have actually been covered. But on our policy, on their commercial policy and governmental policy, water that came in because of maintenance is not covered. So we're on the hook for that. What I am suggesting that we do is this: we divide this up into three discrete phases. We start with the front assembly room, we say that that is all all insurance work. The same companies, or at least the plasterer and the painter, are going to be the same companies. Let's discussing this with Commissioner Palmer, and he came up with this idea, and I think it's a very good one. Is that we have them do the work initially. The insurance company pays for it, and we get to see exactly what quality of workmanship we're dealing with these guys before we turn them loose in the rotunda. You know, hopefully since these are the only guys that have stepped forward after 3 years that are willing to do the work, hopefully we don't have to fire them. I'm confident that we don't, but we don't know until they do the work. My suggestion is we do that. We tell the insurance, we get back with the insurance company. I was hoping to get more information out of him last week, but he did not return my phone calls. But his attitude, when you look at these numbers, they're big. And they frankly have got some heartburn about it. And frankly, I got some heartburn about it, but it's a matter of supply and demand. We can't, this is very specialized work. And they've not signed anything for us yet, but what I've got from the insurance company is it's specialized work, and we're going to have to pay the freight on it because we can't get anybody else to do it. Here's what I suggest we do. We approach them, we get them to proceed with the first floor assembly room, we get that dealt with. And we're talking about doing this in next year's budget. Then I go ahead and I make application for the Deadwood grant for the third floor courtroom. The deadline for that is October the 1st. I've got a draft finished of it. You're holding part of the draft there. Well, there's a lot of other documentation that we need to send with it, and we need to get one of you guys to sign it. I guess the chairman of the commission. You guys need to authorize the chairman of the commission to sign the application, and then I will hand deliver it over to Peter before the October 1st deadline. So, and then as we get into this, we see what happens with the first floor. If we're happy with it, we proceed. The insurance company's not going to have a problem if we tell them we ain't going to do the work with these guys, at least. But then we go, and then the insurance company covers approximately their half of that, and we can make the decision to proceed or not proceed with the courtroom, depending upon what our budget looks like. What the budget? Well, we know what's in the budget, but do we really have the money? So we've got $60,000 budgeted. Now, if we just pay, by my estimation, our portion of the third floor, the rotunda, and the courtroom, if we pay for all of it, it comes to $77,005.50. Well, I'm not exactly sure how precise that's going to be, but that's going to be close. And if we don't get the Deadwood grant and we want to proceed with that, there is $25,000 budgeted in professional services, between professional services and repair and maintenance. That's what we had in the budget for this past year, and we spent a big chunk of that, and I'm going to ask to spend some more of it here in a minute for this year on a different project. That's an option that we can spend it out of that, or we can just put it off another year. I would like to just get it all done to start off with. If the planets all align, the insurance company comes through, we get the grant from the Deadwood Society. If not, we can revisit that when it comes time. But I do have to have that application with the chairman or whoever you want to authorize to sign that and get that to them by October. So that's where we are on that.
We get our orders in the water, I want to keep roaring.
I agree.
This is something that's been going long enough, we've talked about it long enough and stuff, if it's within. We just got a lesson in supply and demand just a moment ago, we'll get many of them in the future. But we need to go forward with this. Every year we go by, it's gonna get higher.
Yes, sir.
So, we gotta go forward.
Then so what we'll do is I'll get with the insurance and I will bring I will get them to get the insurance company to make sure that they make sure they agree to it in writing and not just verbally. And we'll proceed with the first floor assembly room. And I will tell the contractors that what we want to do is we want to divide it up. We want to do the assembly room first. And I would imagine that they're not going to have a problem with that. And we'll do that contract, and then we'll do the contract for the other two areas as is appropriate. Is that okay?
So if you're applying for a deadwood grant, and you'd happen to get it, then would we go to the third floor courtroom?
Yeah.
Use the deadwood grant money?
Use the deadwood grant for that. What I'm telling them is that that we're using our money for the other projects as our match for the money that we're asking for.
So then the rotunda, you wouldn't try to get any money out of deadwood?
I'm giving, if we give them they're more likely to give us something if we give them a specific thing. We'd like for you to help with this, the courtroom. Not to mention the fact they've got pictures over there of the courtroom with all that stained glass and all the ornate, and that's the kind of thing that they like to spend money on. Well, they'd like to spend money on that, but if we could say, look, we're spending this money on the rotunda, we'd like your help with that. That is going to be a lot. That they're going to be a lot more likely to give us the money for that.
I'd entertain a motion for authority to sign on the floor.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Go on, Jerry, sign.
I'll let the chair decide.
First and second. You got that, Doug?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Do you want to make any resolution about signing any of these contracts if we could get them going before October the 1st?
I'll make that motion if you want it in a motion form. That the chairman will sign the contracts to keep this moving forward.
Second.
Any other discussion? If it varies, I'll just tell you guys, if it varies anything from this, there'll be full disclosure before it gets signed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The chair will sign in good faith for the board.
And here is, no, we may not have enough of these. Well, I thought I had enough copies, but no, here they are. This is a proposal to replace the, let's see, 1, 2, 3. This is a proposal from Highmore Furniture and Carpet Land to replace the carpet in the assembly room and the sheriff's office. It's the same company that replaced the carpet in the other offices, and it's the same type of carpet. What's going on is I was planning on looking at this in the future, but I've noticed that especially in the assembly room, the carpet over this last year has gotten a lot more frayed. And the carpet in the sheriff's office it may be 30 years old. It's in bad shape. We have approximately after this, we just got the boilers repaired, and the vouchers for the boiler repairs are in the packet for this month. After those things are paid, we're going to have approximately $9,000 left in between professional services and maintenance. And of course, we have some money left in supplies as well. The way inflation is going and the fact that this guy is ready to do this work now, and the carpet in these other rooms have held up pretty well. And considering there's some other things that are coming down they're going to have to be dealt with in the next 2 to 3 years. Since we got the money in the budget right now, I would recommend that we go ahead and deal with this and it's dealt with. And that's one other thing as far as maintenance goes that we don't have to deal with in the next 2 or 3 years. Plus the fact that inflation is here. And next year carpet's gonna be more expensive if we can even get it.
You, you don't foresee anything coming up in the next 4 months that money that we'll need that money for?
I don't foresee it, but we also, the other thing is, we've got some money left in supply. If it does, we've got some money left in supplies. Especially, like for the heating oil, we've got the biggest thing that was coming up was the boiler maintenance. That's been taken care of. The checks have been requested. That 9,000 reflects what's left in there after those are paid. And we've got 9,000 gallons of diesel fuel sitting, a little more than 9,000 gallons of diesel fuel sitting in the tanks right now. That's going to get us into next year. So I'm not buying any more diesel. It's just the way that it happened this year. If an emergency comes up, we've got some cushion there. And again, my concern is that there's maintenance to be done, and this is going to be probably a lot more expensive next year when it comes time to.
Carpet on, that he has on hand, or?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He has it on hand, and I went downstairs and I took samples to Chelsea and to Ann, and they both picked out the same carpet. And the sheriff looked at it, and his opinion was, whatever they want's fine with me. So I've been married 31 years, and I've never picked out paint, wallpaper, or carpet, and I have no intention of doing so. But
Discussion on the floor.
The dollars are there, it's like.
We've maintained the rest of it, I'm surprised we didn't go through the whole building when we did it, but I remember we had controversy at that time, so we kind of go, whoa, but it's,
I'd make a motion to approve it, to replace it as long as you can get it done this year.
yes, sir.
I'll second that as long as I can get it done this year.
any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
There are a couple other things if you will indulge me for just a moment. The blinds, sir.
Make sure to visit with him because we do pay excise tax.
Yes.
And so a lot of contractors, when they're actually performing their assembly of
Yes,
stuff,
sir.
have to do that. So just make sure that he.
That were sales tax exempt, but not excise. Okay. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Some other things that are coming up in the next couple of years. We got some problems with the windows. Nothing drastic. We just need to stay on top of it. The windows and the blinds are 30 years old, and the blind in one of the blinds in the Register of Deeds office fell within a month before last. It's been in there 30 years. It just finally came down, and it's not going to be the last one. It's just the first one. The other problem is that one of the windows in the assembly room, the seal has broken on it, and we've got condensation inside the double panes. And in the treasurer's office, we've got a couple of small leaks that we get water come in when the rain blows hard and it blows in the right direction. The windows are 30 years old. The blinds are 30 years old. I've started to get estimates. Well, I've requested estimates. Budget Line's going to be out here maybe tomorrow or Friday to walk through and give me an estimate on that, replacing the blinds. They are specialized blinds. I found out I can't get them from just Menards. What I got in there now to keep the sun out of the lady's eyes, I got from Menards, but it's only a temporary fix. And frankly, it needs to be done to a professional standard, and I can't do it to a professional standard. But we got a temporary blind up in there now. So what I'm doing is I'm getting an estimate from them, and I'll get some other estimates. I talked with House of Glass. They came out here and walked around the building. They've told me what needs to happen is that the windows are 30 years old. Let's just re-caulk all of them, reseal them. The one that's got the pane has double pane has got condensation in it. I've got some extras upstairs. I'm going to pull that one out, replace it, so we can deal with that. I don't think we need to deal with this next year, but the following year, we probably need to plan on their estimate is 16,000 and some change, 16,200 and something, I think, to recall all of the windows. It's maintenance. Once it's done, the windows are good for another 15, 20 years. The blinds are probably going to be expensive. I just don't know yet. That's one of the reasons that I went ahead and pushed for the carpet now. Let's go ahead and deal with it. I'll report back to you on what's going on with that stuff. My take on it is some of the blinds we might have to replace between now and then, but we'll just see what they have to say, and there may be in that $25,000 and then in additional supplies, there may be money there for it. More than likely, it's going to be too much, and we'll have to put it off with the windows for 2023. But I wanted you gentlemen to know what was going on with that. The other, so I will get back with you, and I'll get some more estimates on recaulking the windows.
And see if they'll bid them blinds as a whole.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes they'll come in and build them as a whole, just to replace them all, and at a way better rate than just piecemeal them.
Yes, sir. And that's my idea, is to get the first estimate to do it, is just do all of them, because the others are going to come down. It's just a matter of time. And I also will let you know that when there's several styles, I'm sure I will take it around to the various offices and have them get a consensus which what we need to put up. So,
Should we not address the windows, these couple windows that are leaking now, though?
well, I'm gonna take care of that.
Okay, all right.
We're talking about budgeting items down the line.
Yep.
Hopefully, that's what he's getting his point. That's what I like, budgeted items.
So now the ones that are like the one over there, I'm gonna go up in the attic later this week, pull one out and replace that one. And I'm gonna go over there with a caulk gun and see what I can do with these two over here. That's just the temporary stuff. But what I think, if we don't do it, what's gonna happen over the next 3, 4, 5 years, more of these seals are breaking the windows, we're gonna get condensation, and then in 5 more years down the road, we're gonna have a big problem.
We're gonna ruin more plaster.
Yeah.
And we'll be plastering and painting.
We'll be doing it some more, so.
All the sashes will be rotted out.
But I'll keep you posted on that. A couple of other things for your information. I did talk with Protect, with Adam and Protect Roofing. I talked with Mary over at the library. They are tentatively scheduled to be out here October 1st to after October 1st to get the roof on the library. The problem that they've had is the insulation. They have not been able to get the insulation that they need. They originally were going to get it in May, then they were going to get it in June, then they were going to get it in July, and now they're getting it in October. Now, I don't know that there's any guarantee that they're going to get it in October, but they're hoping that they get it in October and they'll get out here and get the roof replaced.
Do you know if we signed a contract with them or?
I did not know that.
I think we just have a proposal. And we
Maybe Jim, if you can talk to them, maybe I'll find out if they wanna sign a contract or something, if we have something tied up. If they ain't gonna go forward, we need to know.
Yeah.
And it's kind of getting that time of the year, if you're gonna go forward, you need to go forward,
Well,
So I understand short supply, I mean, it's happening everywhere, but I forgot about the inflation deal, I don't know if you guys have, but I forgot about that was their shortfall, they didn't have enough insulation.
The last thing for your information, you may get a question about it or you may get a complaint. I'm working on it. That's the flag on the big flagpole. It's hung up at the top and it ain't coming down. I talked to Ron Hofteaser, when he gets time and the weather permits and rounds hard enough, he's gonna come out here either with a boom truck or get the fire department to come out here with a ladder truck and make it a training exercise and get the flag untangled. After that, I'll look into seeing what we need to do about upgrading that flagpole. So if the flag's getting caught at the top, obviously there's a problem, but short term. And it's the flag and it's on the flagpole. I've had some questions about it and somebody might be questioning you about it. I want you guys to know what's going on, that we are working on it. We are gonna get it down.
might have to tie a bigger stop in so it don't run clear to the top or
Yes,
something.
sir. There's gotta be a fairly easy fix short term for it.
Some of them have a little bar stop in there, stop it down like 4 inches from the top of the pulley.
Like right now, it just goes all the way to the pulley, and that's what's happened. It went all the way to the pulley and kept going.
Yeah.
So,
If you had a hose clamp or something on there, so it couldn't quite get to the pulley, so it wouldn't do that.
I believe that's all I have, gentlemen.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, let's press forward, see if we can get our maintenance done. Talk about that, I'd like to see some of this meeting. Yeah.
Susie, do you want to go ahead of me? What? Do you want to go ahead of me? Yeah.
I didn't make handouts.
I did.
Okay. Looking for the new desktop, which I asked for last year, and I didn't get. Because through the COVID, just didn't get everything going. For one, my son was gonna be the one that was gonna come back, help implement everything. So, Connection Point, they have a price of $2,098.10 to get one. It could take October, November before I can get one. They have to order it. And something with the chip, obviously, they're having a hard time. The other one is from A&B Business. That one is, when you total up the price and the delivery and setup is $2,165. The desktop has a 7-year warranty on this one. Has twice the memory on this one. So I'm thinking that's maybe a better deal. And he can get one, if I tell him quick enough, probably within the next 2 weeks. They have 3 on the shelf.
And I think that delay is only based on his travel route.
Right, and the technician to come out and install everything is probably, once I tell him whoever I can.
Have you dealt with A&B much?
Yeah, we have ongoing stuff with A&B, they do a copy of maintenance.
Right, they just put in one,
Orders.
they just put, well, I don't have a copier to have maintenance, but I do, that printer that I just got for the vital records, they came in, set it up, that's the only reason I thought of getting a quote from them. Didn't know they did computers personally, but should have figured they did, that they do printers, so. And the guy was quick and efficient.
I'd make a motion, you go to A&B and get the laptop, or the desktop that you, need.
Still in your budget for this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if I have to, I can use part of that MMP fund for that.
Have they clarified A and B all the different stuff that?
Yeah.
And what I did for A and B is I took out all the prices on this side and they lined So he didn't have the prices or knew it was connecting point and sent him what the other person had, so us comparing more apples to apples and that.
That was first on the floor.
$67 of difference between the two. You would prefer A and B?
Well, if with more memory and that's twice the amount of memory, so I'm getting a better deal. I feel as that, and besides, they know he can get the computer where the other guy, what if he can't get it in October and November?
Motion. I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Purchase.
Okay, thank you for that one, and then, what's the other Doug here? Sinead, I need to amend her hourly wage. Why it was at $16.96 and not $17.01? Have no clue.
We think that was related to that CPI thing,
Okay,
because the base wasn't changed and
when we did it, so I just need to have that amended so she matches the other, deputies.
Do you need a motion or you just don't?
Yeah.
I'll motion. We amend it to match the other deputies.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, you're in for me?
Yep.
Okay, there's quite a bit of information here, so feel free to stop me. If I go too fast. Safety Benefits is the company that watches out for our liability insurance. So they do the things like making sure we don't have cords across the floor people don't trip on. So they had several recommendations that they wanted to have us adopt. And they divided them by priority, so there's an A-level priority and a B-level priority. To be quite honest with you, most of our policy book is outdated. It's 20 years old or more in certain places. And so I went out searching for a job description. So instead of building a new one, I found one from Perkins County that has been approved by them, as well as they have their own human resources department. And then Brookings County has also got national accreditation. And so several of us have been looking at that, seeing, I mean, quite honestly, most of it, I haven't had to change anything because it has the current language, but it still has the same intent as ours. So what they're looking at is an annual review of the sexual harassment policy, the background checks on all prospective hires, which right now we don't do all of them. Prohibition of devices used while driving, and that would be in compliance with statute. And then the use of hands-free devices for those who do need to use their phones. Some of the recommendations, this one I believe Will has already taken care of, which was the boiler chemicals. We're at the top of the stairs to the boiler room, so they were in a public area. But I think he's now moved them into the actual boiler room. It's a corrosive material, so it actually, if you go down there, you can see where it was being slapped against the wall and it started to eat the mortar. And then the weed and pest department, he went out there to do his inspection, and immediately walking in the office, he smelled the herbicides, and it was like one of those written in red ink, underlined, several exclamation marks, to get that out of that building and into some sort of separate storage. And so Randy's already visited with you about that. He wants either to have that container or some portion of that building. I think right now his main thought is buying one of those small containers and putting it out there on its own. And then the level B was the creation of job descriptions, which you guys have talked about before. In fact, recently you talked about job descriptions and what they are. Currently, we don't have hardly any job descriptions. I know there are in the sheriff's office because I wrote them, but they might need to be updated as well. And then the recommendation on the B level was that Randy had a step ladder, and he has now since hung it on the wall. And then another one for them was the decluttering of office and storage areas. He wasn't very impressed with the basement, the attic, my back room. He really likes Susie's office. She got high marks.
Well, good.
And then I already know that Jamie has been looking at getting rid of old records in there, but unfortunately they go to the attic, so. Basically, he said he needed to get rid of the stuff, because if there were a fire, it would be hard to control.
We have to keep some of it though?
Yeah.
So I have to get a separate area, storage area or something.
Right.
Store it.
Which would get cluttered.
He was talking about, if you look at.
Store it with the chemicals?
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you put a storage area and let everybody start throwing stuff in there, then it gets cluttered.
Right.
But
He was talking like, there's a lot of wooden furniture upstairs, and if you come out of that attic, it's right there. So, that's one of his objectives, but basically what this all translates down to is they want you as a board to send a message to us as tenants, employees, staff members to take care of these problems and when you expect them to be taken care of. And so what they did, and I think it's in your folder, is they have a form that they want filled out and signed as to when you believe that the staff will get these items taken care of. I've already talked to Will about the decluttering.
Is it stuff we want to save?
Some of it literally is stuff that would be worth dealing with, trying to sell it. And I think some of it was kept just in case, kind of like my garage, I don't know if that someday.
I like that window he's gonna do, get, put it over here.
Yeah, but in the corner, yeah.
Yeah, there's useful stuff too, I think, in there. But then we've had a request from the weed board for a storage compartment for a chemical, we just haven't figured out the heating problem of heating.
Whatever the storage for that weed department is, has to be separate from anything else. It's gonna stink up any building you put it in, it has to be separate. Whether it's a separate little building or a insulated storage shipping container, whatever, it has to be separate from everything else.
You take a storage container and put heat in it, and they gotta walk in there with no ventilation. Not really good for them guys either, so I mean, it's gotta be thought about a little bit.
So anyway, what my suggestion is that you,
It's probably in that pile there.
was that, you said like Thanksgiving is a date for us to have these resolved. And that doesn't mean like having a surplus sale between now and then, but it means, making it so that you can traverse through the attic, the basement.
How about what we're gonna do in 2022? A plan of what's gonna happen in 2022.
Yeah.
I like that. Everybody present their plan of how they're gonna clean up their act.
This is what they're talking about. This form right here. So it is recommended that the anti-sexual harassment policy be reviewed. So with the Brookings policy, if we continue to go through that and plagiarize it to make it our own, it has this sexual harassment segment in it. We would just furnish that to all the department
Give
heads.
everyone a paper handout and say, here you go.
Yep, we would then converse with their employees and everybody would sign off.
It's easy enough.
I just took one online, because I'm pass over.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah, but, I mean, online courses that you can take, you read through them, and you click on your answers and accept them.
They have you doing that too, huh? Yeah, I do too.
I don't think it has to be I don't think they have to take quiz, you just have to hand in the literature and sign that they received it.
Yep.
Right.
And accept it. Most of them accept it from the bottom of it.
But I think what they're really looking for here is, in the past, these used to go out to the departments, and some departments were really good about getting it back, some department heads were really poor about getting it back. And so what they're asking for is for you guys to say, here's the line in the sand, please get this done. But like some of them are done, so quite honestly, the next meeting, you can get a report back that several of them are gonna be done. So like in our office, we used to say cardboard boxes for shipping, they're all done.
The priority levels.
So who do we pass that job on to print off or handouts or whatever we need to make sure.
I would send them out by email to each department head and ask them to review it with their staff and get them back to us.
Then they'd have a form that they sign,
They could
and
print-
that
But
would be
the
on
Brookings
file.
County manual has it, so quite honestly, we've been just changing Brookings to hand throughout this whole thing. I mean, I honestly haven't had to do any thought process other than look at formatting and changing Brookings to hand. Got rid of the segment that dealt with labor unions, because we don't have that. Otherwise, it's been pretty straightforward.
How extensive is the background check change?
What they want is people to be fingerprinted, and then they get sent to peer. So it'd be the same thing that they use for daycares, nurses, school staff. Right now, we just have Shane running through that subscription that he has, which gives us like indicators that this person lived at this location and may have some public record, but this would actually return a result if they've ever been charged with something that they would have been fingerprinted for.
Yeah, this Brookings have the cell phone policy as well.
As far as use of it, yeah, actually what they do is the state law says you're not supposed to use a electronic device while operating a motor vehicle, so this probably impacts the highway department more than anybody because they're conversing with each other either by two-way radio or by phone. The two-way radio is fine, it's the telephone where they're dialing or when they're texting. And so conceivably, you might end up buying Bluetooth devices for them to use when they're in the truck instead of manipulating the phone by hand. So, and that's federal. But what they want you to do is have a policy so that the department head can say, you know, the other day I met you and you were on the phone. You can't do that. Without having to turn them into the cops.
Is it in that policy? Brookings? Never. Should be using it.
So if we print this little section off and forward it to the, each,
Yeah, everybody actually gets the agenda.
Yeah.
By email now.
but they need to take note of that, come back to the next meeting with a plan on how they're gonna.
If I could, I would just have you like write Thanksgiving on, put your name under, and I'll send that to them and say, here's our marching orders.
On that or on this?
Vote on that thing.
On this.
So we have to approve some stuff for the personnel handbook
Eventually,
before we can send that out, right?
yeah, or what we can do is like on this, the hands-free part is, you know, I don't have to worry about it because I don't have an employee that drives a company car. So that goes to a very limited number of people. And then we can take the Brookings one and say, this is what we'd like you to do. Because it covers everything in its term. And then you can expect this probably to be adopted, you know, across the whole operation soon.
So say, I guess I'd like to see it amended into our handbook and then
Do it.
then send it out.
The only benefit of doing this is we qualify for a 25% discount on the premiums. You guys issue that for everyone.
Well, right, but at a certain, do we have to have it? But if we amend the handbook almost right away, a couple of those items.
If you want to move on the handbook that fast, we could. I mean, conceivably. Because right now, all I'm really working on, Susie and Sinead are helping, is formatting. You know, lining up paragraphs and bullet points and.
Because I know ours is in need of, in my opinion, is in need of some.
But I think we can put. we can
But if
put-
they're working on it, I think we could do this to get the savings and then the handbook. The handbook will reflect anything that's done with this.
Sure.
If these needed to be on hand by say the 10th of December, before year end, you know, not during the holidays, I don't see no reason why that can't get done.
Right.
Then we'd have step one done. If we wanted to make a handbook conform to these, that'd be fine. Eventually, it's gonna have to happen.
That being said, well, the one with the chemicals might be.
That'll be the toughest.
The toughest, 'cause
Toughest
we'll
one, because we'll have to figure something.
Right.
That's gonna be the most costly one in here. Because we are going to have to figure out a place to put it.
Yeah, Randy has been in touch with,
Cooper.
no, the MCAC boy. Clayton, and Clayton sells those containers. And Randy has an estimate on what it would cost to purchase one, have it delivered and set down. The only thing he hasn't got too far into is insulating a portion of it and providing some sort of heat so the materials don't freeze.
And I want
He's got it conceptualized, he just don't have numbers on it.
I want to talk to Randy about this too, because if he can get his inventory down to a low level like he should anyway at the end of the year, as low as possible, if he could talk to one of them chemical companies and just rent some space for winter time, then he'd only have to have cold weather.
Cause he shouldn't have, if it's,
Oh,
he shouldn't have piles on it left.
He shouldn't have a truckload of it left. If he has, he's.
The room that it's in right now probably is half of this area, and it's on pallets, and it's probably no more than knee high.
But if you could get space in somebody else's chemical building for the winter time, that'd be a lot simpler. Then you could just have a container car like we're talking about, sitting out there for summertime.
Yeah.
And it makes sense to get that inventory down at the end of the year, not be set with
Right.
containers and containers of it.
Well,
He might.
getting the company that sold him the chemical to take it back and store it.
They're gonna have liability concerns there.
They're not, they're not, it doesn't hurt to ask, but I doubt whether they'll do it.
Well, then maybe we need to dispose of any chemical we don't use instead of trying to carry it over from year to year, because you're gonna heat a building all winter long. to
Right.
keep this stuff from
Right.
freezing. So if you're only heating it for 50 gallons worth of stuff in there,
Do
you
we,
burn 50 gallons of fuel, might be pretty close to the
Yeah.
same cost.
It could be.
I mean, you need to look at that stuff.
when is our, what time of year is our surplus auction?
It's usually every other year in October.
I was gonna say, if it's late enough that he's done spraying, we could put excess chemical on the surplus auction. I don't know if we can do that or not, but,
I don't know if it's, I just.
But he should have a different place to store it even in the summertime.
well, you
Well,
walk.
right, just not heating it or not.
You just wouldn't have to eat it year round.
You walk into that building, it's overwhelming, the smell of it, as soon as you walk in there.
But in the summertime, you can kind of leave the door
Yeah.
open on it, so in the wintertime, you can leave it closed, you gotta walk in there. So let's have a consensus here on this. We don't wanna go forward and get our heads of the department, start working on this. And
Yes.
getting it put
Yeah.
together by December, and then, our handbook. I mean, that's something we gotta go through section by section. I don't know, that's a good wintertime job, but we got lots of good wintertime jobs.
Why can't we have it by the November meeting? And then anything that needs to be addressed can be
Pull up.
revised by the December meeting. That's 2 months to work on a plan.
Cause we know we got one here,
Somewhere pretty straightforward.
at the weed department, we know that one's gonna be one that's probably not gonna get touched this year. It's just not going to.
Yeah, maybe he's gonna have to get rid of some chemical this year.
Right.
Get rid of his inventory. Anyway, okay. I don't have a problem. You want that in motion or what do you want? Or just?
I think as long as you all agree.
I'm gonna go November 10th for heads of department.
Well, by our November meeting, November 2nd.
November 2nd is our meeting.
Okay, November 2nd.
Before.
Because if you get in the holidays, Jim, I'll guarantee
Yeah.
none of this stuff gets done after that.
We just as well get it.
So, address. Sure, that's not how you spell that. December meeting.
No.
AED period.
But yeah, like this one here, it's just a matter of being, give it to the employees. So I'm gonna have it back in the file, so when he
And if we have to
comes
pull that section out of the handbook and address it, or add it to it, whatever.
And I think
Every
email
time
you
I add
the
something to
stuff
it.
now, and you can start looking through it. Because I've already gone through and had Microsoft Word search out every reference to Brookings and change it to hand. That was pretty easy, so, like I said, most of it's just formatting, making sure that sentences don't run into each other and paragraphs are separate.
When you change the handbook though, then it's gotta go to all your staff, all your people, and give them a chance to read it, and look at it and stuff, and that takes time. it's kind of nice if you make your group of changes rather than one at a time.
Well, they're telling you just by the level, they got that level C is their policy. or handbook. They'd
So they're
rather,
actually
they'd rather tell you do these
Yeah.
first and then,
Get this stuff done.
and maybe by doing that, it'll keep us on the road working on that.
Cause this is one of my big ones that I have already, for all of us.
Yeah.
I'm conversing with Randy real quick.
And somebody else might have a better idea for a container deal too, you know. I don't know if you can put a storage unit inside of a storage unit where there's heat, so it keeps the odor down, the smell down, but, you know, with the doorway facing.
Your Randy's got a harvest from.
We could also check with Builder Solutions on these old buildings. They're building, little building with no windows, whatever, roll up there.
Alright. Randy's on with us.
Hey Randy, we're discussing what to do with the chemicals at the end of the year. My first question would be, how much chemical do you carry over? Would it fit in a pickup box or do you need a semi?
You could probably get it all in a pickup box.
Okay, well, I don't wanna heat a whole railroad car to store a pickup box load of stuff, that just don't make sense. How low could you get your inventory if you planned for it in the end of the year?
Oh, pretty low. It depends on how much 2,4-D we had left is the only thing, because we usually get that at 300 gallons at a time usually, but we wouldn't have to do that, I guess.
Does that hurt it if it freezes?
I guess now it's supposed to freeze. I don't know how bad it hurts it, but
I've never seen anything on it that said it hurt 2,4-D if it freezes, but maybe it does.
I'd have to ask the chemical rep guy.
Well, we're trying to get a handle on it, and if you have any ideas or inputs, we'd like to have them on storing these chemicals outside of that building in a self-contained deal, or in the wintertime. We could get a self-contained deal to store them outside, that ain't a problem, but heating it in the wintertime is. And then the ventilation isn't very good in them to walk into to get your chemical. So we're not really being very nice to you and putting it in a grain bin and then telling you to go in and get your bucket full, you know. I don't want to oversimplify this, but that's actually what we're saying. So without correct ventilation, we ain't doing you any favors either. But in the summertime, we could give you an outside building to put your chemicals in, whatever you thought you needed size-wise. But in the wintertime, it'd be nice if you had a very low inventory to not have any inventory, or if there's an off-site that would store it for you.
I don't know if Jeff would let me put it in the building across the driveway here or not through the winter, because that's heated all winter.
Is anybody working there during the wintertime, or who's in there in the wintertime?
Nobody's ever in there, they just have their trucks in there.
They go in and get their snow plows and.
But that's where maybe you could put a container in there.
That's true.
You know, if you had a small container in that building, so you had a container in a container, so you didn't get the fumes, but it wasn't freezing.
Yeah.
But I'd like to know if you get anything you carry over, if it hurts it, if it freezes. Because if you carry over anything that it won't matter if it freezes, that don't make any difference. We'll just get a container and set it outside and put it in.
I'll call my chemical guy and see what he says about that.
Okay. Well, according to this list, we're supposed to be starting on a plan, so you need to work on that plan and what you're gonna do with that chemical, rather than to store it in your building. Any other questions?
I budgeted for one of the containers, I guess.
Yeah, and that'd be good. I was just thinking, you know, if you got a whole big container, nobody else wants to put nothing in there because there's chemical in there. If you're only gonna store a pickup box full of stuff, you got a whole semi there, that don't help nothing else out, you know. Like they have, you know, size appropriate, I guess.
How much, did you get a quote? What did you say you got one?
Yeah, let me see if I got my sheet here.
If we could petition off part of that, somebody else could use part, you know, have two doors.
Or petition it off and just heat part.
You know,
That was what his original plan.
we did a fair amount of work at the wind turbine site in Highmore when they were building over there. And that's what a lot of those contractors had there. They'd come in with those Connex boxes. A lot of them had a panel, we wired up panels in the back and they just had electric heaters hanging in there. And some of them, they built a partition wall on a door in the middle or wherever they wanted it, and then only heated part of it. Some was cold, some was heated, you know.
Yeah, my one, does 100 square feet all the way along for 50 gallons of chemical.
Right.
You know, that just don't make no sense at all. Then you gotta think of your place.
One thing about it, if you spray
in
for,
there too, I guess.
Well, that would help, you know, if part
Just
of
to
this
get it out of the
cold storage.
shop area, cause it's the winter time, we got everything packed in so tight.
Or if you had a place for your four-wheelers for the winter time, you know, just any plan to utilize what you're doing rather than just wasted space, but.
Yeah, I mean, I could stay, I got 2 4-wheelers that could go in there during the winter too. I can't find my budget sheet with the price on there. There's like 4,300 for 20 footer. Something like that.
That'd hold 2 4-wheelers and a toter to a chemical.
what
Yeah.
did he say, a 40 footer or
20
20 footer?
Need 8 foot apiece for them 4-wheelers so we can get around them.
And they're just being there during the winter, you know.
The
And in the summer, we could put them back in the shops.
totes won't go in there side by side, I don't think.
It's too tight.
Because they're all of 4 feet. They're 4 feet. They'll go between your,
One will go on top of the other.
Yeah.
But it won't go side by side.
but you,
Well, talk about a plan for that and bring it to us next month, will you?
Okay.
hey, Randy, Jim Eschenbaum, I had another thought. Maybe check with Builder Solutions and see what they would charge to build just a small building on skids, with just a roll-up door. It wouldn't have to have anything more than just a roll-up door and
Okay.
spray foam insulated, you know, something, I don't know, 12 feet square maybe, but a little building on skids might be an option too. So you might want to ask them about that.
Okay.
Especially if you could put it in one of the buildings that's already heated, just keep it shut. That can control the chemicals.
Yep.
And it's still won't be froze, but. Yeah, and see how much of that stuff you carry over, it matters if it freezes or not, so.
Yeah, I'll call him right now.
All right,
If he's gonna do that.
Thank you.
Just have him build me a
You're
cube.
right, Mike.
Don't put a roof, it doesn't need a roof, just something you can slide right back in the corners, it doesn't take up any room. If they got their building heated. Just have to have a door on it, so you put your chemical in, keep the smell in.
Okay, the next item for you is the Delta Dental renewal, and this just came, otherwise, this was an earlier time. Essentially what you're looking at is the Delta Dental is a shared benefit, employee pays half, county pays half. And what they're talking about is that it increased $1.48 for a single person, $2.34 on a 2-person, and then if you have a family, it's 2.2 increase, which is roughly $2.34. So the options is that you continue to pay half, the employee pays half. You can say that you're not going to absorb the increase, the employee would then have to decide whether to keep the benefit and add about 48.78 cents to 2.34. So that's where we're at.
How much a month is the premium right now?
I think like my Delta Dental is probably around $18, something around there.
A month?
Harlan, do you know?
Who's there?
Our vision and our dental is so reasonable that I don't.
It's not a lot. I guess I would just say we would continue it. I'd make a motion, I'd make a motion we continue at 50/50. For this next year.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
The next item is the domestic violence fund. And this used to be where you would approve the budget. If you remember, the folks from Redfield came, and then we asked them to provide us a little data on how many people they're seeing and stuff. We kind of got the cold shoulder. Well, we're at that point where the fund has reached enough to pay what is planned for the expense. They didn't want to do it without you guys giving the thumbs up or giving the thumbs down. If you want them to come speak to you, I can invite them and then we can pay it subsequent to that visit. But based on what happened earlier in the year, I just didn't want to do that without visiting with them.
What did we pay last year again?
Well, we budget $1,500 and we don't spend it until there's $1,500 to pay it. And that money comes from marriage license.
So we got the money now to pay the 50.
Yep.
And we've always done the 1,500, I mean, do I reach that point?
Yep.
Every time we're in general agreement, every time we've been there, that it's a good thing.
Right.
Because we don't offer that service here in Hancock, and it gives our people somewhere to go. They roll a nice deal up there.
I haven't been there. I wanted to even
Full
drive by.
house, garage.
So if I'm understanding right, that we don't pay that 1,500 until the fund gets built to there.
Right.
Well, then if that's what we've done in the past, I make a motion, we pay them the 1,500
Under the same
or
guidelines.
the same guidelines as we did before.
Okay.
I'll second.
All fair,
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the South Dakota Municipal Agency does our workman's comp. And so every year they send us a form to complete, and I have it up on the screen for a look at. So basically what I do is I go through and I have to use payroll figures and then assign them to each different classification of employee. And so in this particular case, what we're looking at, make it a little bigger. So like the top line is the weed and pest department. There's 4 employees. So this is one of those where you hear me say, well, they just account for odd numbers instead of looking at one full-time and 3 seasonal. And so what they do is their premium is based on 4 employees period, and then what the payroll amount is, and then they come up with a ratio that ends up being billed to us. And so this is a case where by filling this out and sending it in, then we get a discount simply for filling this form out ahead of time. So I did that, I sent it in, it's due the 17th, I sent it in last week. I just wanted you to look at it so that you kind of get a feel for how they formulate workman's comp. And the thing that really shocks me is if you look at the 22 or the 2020 audit numbers, under clerical, they had 78 employees there. And I just cannot conceptualize how we came up with the number of 78. And I think what it was is, I must have included the election workers or something. I just can't think of why we would have that many people. And I look back and it doesn't give an indication that I even submitted 78, but in my conversation with them, I wrote this comment, which is we no longer have a weed board and library board on a wage, they are paid per meeting. What they're gonna do is they're submitting that to the hierarchy for the workman's comp fund to see if that excuses us from paying them workman's comp. If they come back and say, no, they should have workman's comp for that 1 hour they spend at a meeting, then we'll probably have to add them back on there, but at least the forms have been sent, so we'll get the discount. To me, it's just interesting that even like the highway superintendent is pushed all over there all by himself, and then they take all the employees and lump them together. I don't know, for some reason, they felt the highway superintendents needed their own cost ratio. So that's what that's about. There's no action for you to take. I just wanted to give you a peek into what happens on that particular issue and how that ends up becoming a bill later on for us. And then, like I said, they do come out and do an audit. And then if you remember, the last audit they did, we actually got a credit back. They sent us a check for $2,500, so. All right, so then the next one is a policy statement that allows us to formalize that table that we talked about last month so that I can incorporate it into the new policy manual. And what it does is it says the policy assumes that the cost of insuring an employee is paid in full for full-time employees. Because if there comes a time when an employee has to pay towards their own insurance, then this no longer pertains. So if you guys are okay with that, I would print it, Gib could sign it, and then we could write it into the new policy manual. Because that is one of those things that's, you know, Brookings has a different formula than we do. So this would go in there as a whole.
This only covers wage earners, and we're excluding elected and appointed officials out of that.
Pretty much, because there's a strong argument that elected officials are not bound by a local policy. They're only bound by statute. So it would pertain to those who are appointed in hourly, absolutely. And then to elected officials based on their willingness to comply. So if you want to look that over, then I can print it.
It looks okay. So we read on it.
That's what we agreed on.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm doing it this way is because we had a brief discussion about sometimes stuff comes from me, it doesn't have the same impact that it does if it comes from you guys.
So this will be in our policy book.
Yep. I'll go grab that.
So we got one page there.
Yeah.
And you looked at the policy, but there's stuff in there that don't even, there's stuff in there that don't even pertain to it. And there's stuff that should be in there. And
There's lots more in there.
So if you want to look at that in print.
But we've approved it already. Now you're just
Yep, just
making
formalize.
sure
Trying to make it
we're,
an easier way to find it in the records.
we're all on the same page, yeah.
that's,
I've got, hold up here.
I did too.
Okay, so the next item we have is the annual report on court appointed attorneys. And this is again, just a way for me to give you a glimpse into the background. Essentially what happens here is I report to the state treasurer on what we spend for court appointed attorneys and attorneys that represent abused or neglected children. And then they have a funding mechanism where they can return a portion of that to us. I don't know what the actual formula is, but just for the sake of comparison, it says that we spent, and this is based on June through July, not calendar year, $36,166 for court appointed attorneys, and then we spent $2,088 to have representation for an abused, neglected, or child that needs supervision. So the court appointed attorney expenses continue to go up, which is expected because by statute they got, I don't know the statute, but they got an increase in what they're paid per hour. So even if they spent the same amount of time, they're gonna get paid better. And then lastly is the sale of the property on the tax deed. And this is the property that's a block north of here on the corner. It was owned by Andrew Sterry. And it was declared surplus, and so now it's time just to set the terms of the sale. Last month, we had talked about selling it by sealed bid. And then I was hoping that we could open those bids when we have our next meeting, but there isn't enough time because we're moving forward. So it would actually be the October meeting of when we would open them.
so you need, the
So we
date they're due by?
Yep, so we just need to start with the date that you want it due by, and I would suggest that we have them due on the 1st of October.
Yeah. Cause then we would look at them on the,
You would
5th.
open them on the 5th, and then you could decide if they were appropriate, and you could award it on the 5th. So are you okay with the due date being the 1st of October?
I think so.
Yeah.
And then the opening date and location would be during your regular commission meeting here?
Is that date in the first, or is it like a, postage made October 1st?
Normally what we do is it has to be in our hands by the close of business, whether it's by mail or delivery. Right now, there's only been 2 people that have expressed an interest to me in it and want.
But you'll publish this.
Yep.
And if you publish it, that it has to be in your office by October 1st, not posted
Right.
in the office.
Is there anything that regulates, does that be published twice, or that's what the standard is, Ken?
And then the earnest money is a question, to be honest with you, because the appraised value of this is less than $2,500. I don't think earnest money is needed. And that would be where like you wanted to put a cashier's check for 10% of it with their bid. But we're talking about.
I don't think that's
Most
necessary.
of them, if they get the bid, they'll hand you the check for that kind of
Right
money.
there.
They'll just hand you the check.
Okay,
Or I
so
guess if you want a cashier's check, there's.
I don't think it's necessary myself.
personal check is satisfactory or free cash
Because if it isn't,
at the time of the sale.
Yeah.
I mean, if it bounces for some reason,
You're still not transferring
Well, you're not transferring until the money.
title until the check
Money-
clears
money
anyways.
clears, Yeah.
right?
I don't think.
Okay, so we have a due date of October 1, an opening and location is the regular commission meeting on October 5th.
Yep.
No need for earnest money, and the payment will be in the form of cash or check.
Yep.
Okay. Let me back up here. Okay, the next one is ordinance 21-01, and this is something that Jim Eschenbaum and I have been talking about. So in essence, what it is an ordinance was created, you guys decided that you didn't want it anymore. Then from my research, I found that it requires an ordinance to get rid of the ordinance. And so that's what this particular ordinance does. It says pursuant to statute, each county may enact and then repeal such ordinances as deems necessary. And then whereas in July 2020, the county voted to repeal ordinance 2020-01, but not by ordinance. And then now therefore it's ordained that the Board of Commissioners of Wayne County, to wit, you are now hereby repealing 2020-01, the COVID-19 temporary ordinance. And so if you're okay with the way that this is written up, you just tell me, we'll have the first reading at the next meeting. Thanks, sir.
This was our ordinance that we closed bars and restaurants and stuff, and then we voted 4-1 to repeal it. But we supposedly have to repeal an ordinance with an ordinance.
Yeah, so it's a formality, really.
So we gotta do this, do the second reading.
And I have most of it already typed out, wrote out. I plagiarized it from somebody else.
Looks okay to me.
Okay, so you're okay with it being October 5th agenda for first reading?
Your motion,
No, I don't think so.
just a consensus.
You can if you want. It's just ink on paper.
Do you want it to be just resolved in November? Meeting, our budget meeting on the 15th?
That's up to you guys.
It's up to you guys.
Depends on how long you want to be here.
I think we should make a motion, so it's in record that we did it.
Do you want a motion? I'll motion.
Motion, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, do you have a preference on date then?
October's fine.
The 5th at our next meeting would be.
Now, regrettably, I didn't catch this, but ordinance 02 is one that would require the formal background checks, and for whatever reason, I didn't get the document link in there, but it's a very simple ordinance that just simply says, and the reason it's an ordinance is because if in place of, well, I'm not gonna do that, then you have an enforcement ability in addition to just saying, well, you're not gonna work here. But basically, all it says is that you'll submit fingerprints and we'll send them to Superior. Have your records checked.
So that's already in effect.
No, if you,
You want that,
I do, because that would be part of our insurance.
That's our insurance there, right?
Yep. And
I'll
then
make that motion.
if we're okay with that, then we'll do that October 5 as well.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You know, people that, cringe against that, they get I don't know. I don't know what they're doing there.
There's so many more jobs that are doing it. I mean, if you have a commercial driver's license with hazmat, you have to go through it. Okay, 2021-03 is a temporary ordinance regarding the issuance of local medical cannabis establishment permits and their licenses. And what you're looking at here is the documents that came from the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance in conjunction with South Dakota Municipal League, which I'm guessing you can probably tell me if I'm wrong, it's probably quite similar, if not the same type of city went through. Jim had an opportunity to visit with the state's attorney's office, and then, did you get this in paper form or by email?
In paper form.
Okay, and then in essence, what it does is it creates a moratorium that says, because the state of South Dakota through the Department of Health, right, the Departments of Public Safety haven't finished their part of it, that Hampton County's not going to issue any permits, correct? Is that the simple tour?
That is my understanding from reading it. That's the way Elton explained it to me, that we should wait until we have clarification from the South Dakota Supreme Court as to their interpretation of the law that was passed. It was legally passed by the people. We have to abide by that. But his opinion is we should wait until we have clarification of the parameters that we work within to allow anything. So,
Well, basically, that's what we always do, with everything we do, we coincide with what the state does, at least at a minimum. And we can add on more if we'd like, but at least as a minimum. Well, if we don't know what their minimum is yet, I wouldn't know what we put on it. Except that we're not gonna do nothing. Till we do here.
the concern, and we basically dropped this off the agenda after June. The concern was with marijuana being voted in and passed, is that somebody starts something before the state clarifies limitations or ground rules for regulating it, that somebody starts something and it's grandfathered in without any kind of regulation at all. So it was Elton's recommendation that we, and I asked him to attend today and he said he couldn't, his schedule was full. But it was his recommendation that we pass this, basically putting a moratorium on any growing, sale, dispensary, until we get better clarification from the state after the Supreme Court sorts out the intent of what the people passed is basically what it is.
So this one requires this notice to be published 10 days in advance of the public hearing. So I see the only way we can complete that timeline is to do this like in October at the regular meeting.
Any other discussion on the floor, or any action on the floor?
I
On
will,
the agenda for the 5th.
See if there's any action on the floor, if they want to adopt this or put it on.
do we need to move to adopt it now to,
No, because you have to do this, there's this timeline that's in here. Well, I'll just read it, so forgive me if I stumble. It says the Hampton County Planning Commission. So that's one of the questions I have for you is, depending on who the chairman is, like JD used to do the Hampton County planning commission, you'd adjourn as the commission, go back to the planning commission. If you do it that way, then this pertains. It says the Hank County Planning Commission and the Board of Hank County Commissioners will hold a joint public hearing on whatever date at the Hank County Courthouse at the address. All interested persons are encouraged to attend on a temporary ordinance regarding the issuance of local medical cannabis establishment permits and/or licenses. After the public hearing, the planning commission may pass a resolution recommending the approval of an ordinance 21-03 with or without amendment to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners may have first reading. So that's the first time that you would have a first reading.
So you're saying the zoning committee is gonna propose this to the commission, who is one of all the same?
Right, and that's a question that I think probably Elton should answer is,
So we need to,
We used to always retire zoning
we should retire into the zoning
and then recommend it this
and
year
then
to
recommend this back to the county commissioners,
the commissions.
right?
Present this.
that's my understanding.
That's
That's the
how
way
we,
we used to do it all.
that's how we should do it, because that way we keep in sync with what we've always done.
Okay.
If it's a zoning issue.
Because the only difference that I have
I will.
is that the second page of this is if we have no zoning commission. So, and I've already loaded most of the stuff in it. And so in this case, then what I would do is I would send to the newspaper a notice of this hearing that's going to take place, so that you can have the planning commission joint meeting with the commissioners, receive public comment, and then you can decide if you're going to send it to the commissioners for adoption and first reading.
The problem I have with that is if we're gonna have a zoning meeting, we should have advertised a zoning meeting.
Correct.
At least have it on the agenda. And then the zoning committee would recommend whatever the recommendation is. But where it's all in one, it just seems really redundant to me, and I know my parliamentary procedure is pretty poor, but no malice meant to anybody. But when you're all one and the same people, it's just another hoop to jump through. But if you'd like to have a zoning committee meeting, then they probably should advertise one, or at least have it on the agenda. Then we can put it on the agenda for that 15th meeting.
I don't think we can advertise that many times, right?
That
10 days prior? No, we don't have enough time.
Right.
The disadvantage of having a meeting on the latest possible date today. October.
I really feel like this board can act as a zoning board, but I do understand that we do have a zoning board established. And if we're gonna use it, we should use it correctly. But that delays this by another
month.
month, but that being said, can we advertise? No matter what, it's gotta come from a recommendation of the zoning committee, so that.
Yeah, and it says that when you have this joint meeting, and that would be the question for Elton is, because you're the same people, can you hold a joint meeting? Or do you have to meet, formally adjourn, reconvene?
That's what we've always did in the past, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, because I've never had a legal.
And Elton also recommended that we get our zoning director involved. So she would be up to speed with what's
That's
going on.
only fair.
Because she's gonna have to, guide us a lot in whatever we do determine to be, requirements, I guess.
Would you have a problem if we went to the October meeting with our and open as a zoning committee? October meeting with our here, and then we could close that meeting and make a recommendation to the board?
No problem at all. I just,
How's that?
I just don't wanna be accused of dropping the ball with this stuff, you know. When we took it off the agenda after June and if somebody builds something and the entire community isn't happy with it and they're like, why didn't you guys get your work done. That's the situation I don't wanna end up in.
I really wouldn't have any problem if we had another member from the community on the zoning board. I wouldn't hear from there, anywhere. On that board, so that board was one person different than
We're talking
the
about.
same board.
Are you really?
You know what I mean? Split was economic development.
Great.
That's a good person on the zoning. I don't know. But anyway. So, yep, then we'll have to put a zoning meeting either open, yeah, we'd open with it, please.
Yeah, the other ones you set on October 5th by motion, you want to do this one as well?
I'll make a motion.
Pardon?
Made a motion to set that meeting to October 5th.
Well, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's our zoning meeting. Anything else pertinent to the zoning meeting? Talk to her
You're gonna
about.
have your first zoning meeting.
Oh, I'm excited.
Well, if you have anything to add to it in the next few weeks, you can add it on to that zoning meeting agenda.
Okay, I will do that.
Maybe a report from your office that you're getting settled
Okay, do you
in.
want it to be 10 or 12 pages long?
Hold it to a page and a half.
Hold it to about
Yeah,
paragraph.
paragraph.
Okay,
One of us will be in to talk to you about it.
okay, great.
Okay, that ends my portion of that segment of the agenda.
Well,
Now we're pretty good. Looks like Harlan.
What's next?
Nice quick, LEMPG, my grant is due. That pays half my wages and half my benefits. I believe Gibb should have a copy of that needs a signature.
Make the one.
It's the whole contract and then it should be labeled where you need to sign. And I'm here just if you have questions.
Is there anything pertinent that I should be reading in here?
It's the same contract that it's been for quite a while. More of a formality than anything. And this will be for the year 2022.
Dated today?
Yep. I think there's a couple spots in there, I'm not sure. I had it ready last month. So I haven't looked at it.
Did the numbers come out right?
One spot.
Let me see.
Go ahead, roll over to it, and then make sure we didn't miss something.
I would recommend a motion to approve the.
Oh, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
That is
Aye.
Alright,
only one spot on that. All right, no other questions, I'm out of here.
Is, how's our radio deal going?
It is just about ready to be installed. We have been playing the COVID game, waiting for parts to come in, and they finally got them in August. Now the license is an issue with one of their routers. And they licensed one and not the other through the company called Zetron, who makes all this stuff, so they're figuring that out, and we thought last week we were gonna have it installed, but now we're hoping this week.
Has your handheld showed up? Or-
Yes, they did.
So, you're gonna get put together by the holidays, I know.
Hope so. Actually, the handhelds are working good. Got them programmed. I need to do a little work on them. They're not exactly the way I want them yet, but the company that I'm working with is helping me out quite a bit. And then we got another 8 radios coming, digital radios that should be coming with the Homeland Security grant. And we got one more year after this, we'll have 35 total radios, about $80,000 worth of radios will come back to the county for free. So
Have you got any spare storage anywhere in your realm where you're at?
no,
he needs it because he already requested that earlier.
yeah, I actually
I
requested.
want to stay, everybody to stay like this. We're gonna try to get a chemical storage figured out, some cold storage figured out. I hate to commit to a one little truck and have three other guys stand in line, maybe shove a great big truck with one corner off for chemical storage or gas jugs or spray can things or whatever, especially if we're gonna end up heating it that everybody can use. And then the rest of it will be cold storage. You know, a lot of times you plan and try to really be cheap and get by small where you don't know what all the needs are. So we'd like to know if there's needs out there, but we know that Wheaton Bestport has.
Yes, I brought that up a couple months ago about possibly a building or purchasing a building. I have a lead on a building, but until we know for sure, I don't keep it. I will keep.
We would like to find a building somewhere, especially if we had a separate entrance to it, that would close it off.
This is, actually Shane and I both went and looked at it.
Store chemicals.
We could walk right into it and use it. He wouldn't have to do anything extra for his. We've been kind of waiting on the COVID money, the new stuff, the Recovery Act, to see where that's gonna lead us,
Okay.
but yeah, I just, until we know for sure, I don't wanna indulge that information. In private, I would.
Yeah, then we keep going forward because we have other people in the building that need some declutterization.
Well, there's a lot of room. It's actually pretty close to the same size that we requested originally. And it's insulated. There is a separate room that's insulated and heated. So that would cover what the sheriff was looking for. And there's plenty of extra room for what I need. And we can make it usable for just about anybody if we need to with the county.
Okay, any idea when that might be coming into play?
So they won't, with the money, they won't really give us any direction on it. I mean, the very first one is to help with COVID, and
As far as you know, if the check was written, we could have it tomorrow. Building.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, the building's available. Just finding the money, I guess, would be the issue.
All right,
And I'd be happy to take anybody to look at it. Just let me know.
thank you, sir.
You bet. Thanks.
Thanks, Ron.
Let's get a red check.
Okay, the capital accumulation fund, the first part is an FYI. The elevator replacement project that was created in September 2018, it expires next year. $50,000 a year was put into it. So it was $250,000, correct? And the current balance is at $200,000 because we made the last contribution in February. It has to be spent by 2025. And so I thought that was important for you guys to know that even though you're inject into it, it will be done next year. You have till 25 to do it. So depending on what is all discovered about the elevator, we lose a little time, but at least in 2020, I would strongly recommend that you start the bidding process and awards for construction in 2023. Hopefully get payment done so that it is completely closed out and auditable in 2023.
Is it okay to inject again?
The original resolution was wrote on these terms. So we would have to probably do a second resolution if we wanted to change it.
Because realistically, at this point, that's not gonna be enough.
Okay. Well, I know it's not gonna be enough. We know that.
I don't know, that last guy said he could renovate it.
Yeah, but that had a lot,
Pretty fast.
that had a lot of unknowns on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he was expecting Otis not to be as non-cooperative as they were. I think he thought they were gonna be open arms about it, but they weren't.
Well, that makes perfect sense, Doug.
So I'll find that out, Greg, about if it needs to be extended or money at the end of the year could be thrown in there.
Well, if we let out bids for it and any bid come in that was way above it, we were short of money, I wouldn't know why we couldn't adjust it
Right.
to go ahead and have another process of another year or two or whatever it takes, rather than make it a shortfall. But I'm sure we'd have to do another resolution to override the first resolution, that added two more years or whatever it would be.
And what Will told us with the building being on the National Historic Register, he goes, a modern elevator he didn't think was really acceptable. So I don't know, somebody's gonna have to check into that, but I mean, whether if we can fix it for a couple $100,000 or if we replace it for $500,000, it's a lot of difference. But we certainly have to find out what we can do.
Hyde County still doesn't have an elevator.
No, but that's the reason why they don't, I mean, if we don't have an elevator, there's a good chance we could lose court in this county. So, I mean, you gotta keep all that in the back of your mind when you're
Yeah.
doing that. That's just like the speaker system there. If we say we ain't gonna do it, the judge can say, I don't have court in this county anymore. And they have that much power. There's nothing we can do about it.
That's what they did in Buffalo.
Yeah.
But we're lucky we got big stairways, we can put lifts in up these stairways too. I know everybody don't wanna see that and everybody don't wanna do that, but if it's $1 million versus $50,000 to put lift stairs, you just, a whole other, I mean, it just makes.
So you're looking, we should start the bid process in 2022?
That'd be next year.
Yeah,
Let it out.
so I think what that would translate to me is that maybe it's time to invite Mr. Hoshed back and say, you still think you can do this? Because we need to either pay or get on the fives.
Send him the invites, my opinion. Let's figure out what we're doing. That we plumb wore that can out, kicking it down the road.
Well, in Canada, I think he's tried every avenue that he's tried, and it's always come to no avail. It wasn't where he talked about it, he tried to get a bid, but most of the bids are open-ended bids, that, well, they could be 200,000, but they could be 400,000. Well,
Yeah.
at this point, we ain't been able to agree just to leave our arms wide open and welcome all comers.
Yeah.
And maybe at that point, we will have to go another 2 years to try to get close. And then at that point, it'll be still that far in age.
Yeah. We may have to consider another outlet besides.
You want me to invite Randy to the next meeting? Either in person or by TV?
Unless maybe.
If he has something to offer.
Unless he says, well, this isn't the reality, I guess, I don't know if it's worth it.
Okay.
If he feels it.
Then at that time, we need to look at a different option.
Mhm.
Because a lot of buildings have other options besides elevators. We ain't got a 12-story building here, we got a 3-story building. We put a lift on 2 of them. So,
Randy Beck sent me a message with 20-foot containers are $2,900 delivered. That's current pricing. A 40-foot is $4,850.
They would be uninsulated. I would venture to guess, I've done quite a little spray foam, I'd venture to guess it's gonna cost us a couple $1,000s to spray foam it, the inside of it.
the insulated containers, you wouldn't need to spray foam, they're already insulated.
Oh, this wasn't an insulated though, was it? Not for that money, I don't think.
I honestly didn't know they had an insulated version, but that makes sense.
All them container ones are all lined, they're insulated, lined.
A lot of them.
Chinese trucks, or I call them Chinese trucks, because most of them come over on a boat from China. But anyway, let's go forward.
Okay.
Motor vehicle.
So this was something that came up a couple different times, and I got a response from legislative body. And my question was to him about creating a fund similar to the library or the elevator, but for the purchase of vehicles. In the general fund, short of building renovations, the biggest purchase you have is vehicles. And so Ron Fortin, who is the local government assistance director, said that having a fund is not really an option for the board to purchase equipment that is typically not a qualifying event to warrant a separate fund. So that was my question. So he basically said, no, your question can't do that. But what he would recommend is the creation of a fund balance account, equity account, in the general fund that would show up in your balance sheet, and that could be used periodically, assigned fund balance for the future purchase of equipment. Board intent, your action, is typically accounted for by using an assigned fund balance account to keep track of this balance on an ongoing basis. At any time during the years, as long as the fund had a balance and respective cash to back it is available, the board could take action to assign additional fund balance for this purpose, and this would essentially increase the account balance. So what he's saying there is if you create this sub-fund in the general fund, that if you get to the end of the year, you say, well, you know what, Will did get the $60,000 project done, let's move that fund, those funds, into this particular pot of money. You could do that. Essentially, this would be for us, manual journal entry to assign the unassigned, to reduce the unassigned fund balance and increase the assigned fund. So if you were to decide that you're going to purchase a vehicle from that money you set aside, then we take care of it in the bookkeeping system, taking it out of this pot of saved money and putting it into an account to spend it. So the question is if that's something that you want to do, we're probably too late to do it for 2022, except for creating a fund and possibly putting money in it. We start spending out of it, I don't think we can do that. I would find out for sure if you're interested in doing it. So if you're interested in doing this, the question I asked him was about general fund purposes, not little bridge, because that's a different funding mechanism. And honestly, everything he buys is expensive, so this would be like weed and pest, emergency management, because you pay for, general fund pays for the material part of his operation. And then the sheriff's office, if Will need a different vehicle, I'm not forgetting, that's pretty much it, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, lawnmowers, but we just got a new one, so. It'll last.
But I know what you mean, that would be a place to reach for that.
Yeah, he's not gonna call it a capital fund or capital improvement fund or anything of that nature. He just says it's one of these fund balance accounts where you pigeonhole money for a specific project, and when the time comes, then you can spend it.
Well, you don't have to name it, basically.
Not necessarily, it would be like large equipment. You know, and then you could set up that rotational thing that you've talked about where the vehicle hits 7, 8 years, plan on replacing it, and then you would tell each of the departments, like, okay, get yourselves a schedule and make it all match with each other and see what you can do.
Still feel it's better to have those, which doesn't always happen, I know that, but have like that, if we know in 6 years we're gonna change this vehicle, it should be in his budget in 6 years to change the vehicle, not in fall into that category, I guess.
I like that too, because you got one part of your building that they might put 10,000 miles a year on. Another part of your building, maybe your sheriff, he might put 70,000 miles on a vehicle a year, so they need to manage that themselves.
But we always have things that come up, it seems like too, but.
Well, most of the time, they're not budgeted for, that's why they show up. Right. They didn't budget for them. We got hit with a couple times right here, you know, so.
So this is the question as it relates to the general fund. Now, the road and bridge fund, so Jeff and I went to Highmore. On the way back, he gets a phone call and finds out from the Butler County guy that he's got a turbo that's shelling on along the road here. And that supply and demand thing is kind of interesting because the guy's like, well, I can order you remanufactured and have it for 2 days, or we can wait and get one off the shelf for 4 weeks. You know, so it's the difference between getting a genuine John Deere blower versus an aftermarket or remanufactured one. But I think that blade's a 2009 or 07. I can't remember for sure what he told me.
Yeah.
It's getting pretty aged, so.
Oh, it costs about 6,000 probably, but that turbo in.
That's just for the bolt kit. So if you're interested in doing this, I would explore even more and get more information from Ron on what this would look like, and what the limitations are, and the do's and don'ts.
I don't know, I'm kind of still in favor of everybody taking care of their own.
Well, the only thing bad, like you said, that bad about that type of a budget, then nobody's budgeting for it. Cause they're looking, well, there's a pot of money over here, I can just go get it.
That's very true.
It's kind of like a contingency fund in a way, I mean, really, isn't
It
it?
is.
I mean,
It's like us reaching into our pot that's supposed to be contingency fund. Yes, it's perfectly all right, we do that, but it should be on more of an emergency status than just
So,
in case somebody wanted a new computer, you know.
so can each department be responsible for what they are requesting goes into that? And it's, like if the sheriff says, we're gonna replace a vehicle, can't he be responsible for in his budget saying, okay, this,
Actually, it would occur at the global level, it would happen here at the elevator. So it would be your fund.
Because then we really wouldn't have had to set up a fund for the elevator, you could have just kept dumping money into this fund. I can't believe there's gotta be a limit on how much they're gonna let you throw in there.
Right. And that's what I want to find out. is-
Yeah, cause I without it being, because when we did the elevator, that was part of it. Because of the dollar amount we were going to end up with in there, it had to be specified.
Mhm.
Cause it's a capital outlay.
Right.
But like you said, you know, we're starting to get, the library, you know, up to speed of asking, you know, planning on these deals, let's keep these buildings up and stuff. And only them departments know what them are. And like the sheriff's department, he's kind of getting figured out now, you know. Okay, I'm gonna need this vehicle in 2 years, so I'm gonna get that budget in there as you did when you were in there. I'm not belittling on anybody. But even our janitor today, the way he was talking, sounded way better to me. Okay, we've gotta look at this down the road to get these windows and blinds put in. You know, that's right to me, that's what I like to. You know,
That's what we do at home.
Yeah, it's just pre-planning your expenditures and hoping that a fund like this would don't need to be used, you know. But like Lucas said, it seems like we always gotta dip in, you know, it looks like we should have one of these, but I don't know if it's a good idea.
But I think if you have one of these, it takes away the departments from
The
budgets.
budgets get worse.
Yeah, the budgets are gonna get sideways.
Willy-nilly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it wouldn't hurt to just check into it,
know what's real.
what we can do. I
What the
mean,
real rules are.
I mean, as far as whether we do it or not, that's up to this board to decide whether we're gonna do it or not. But we kinda gotta know what we can and what we can't do.
And what it holds against is as far as the contingency, you know, we're only supposed to carry over so much money. And is this gonna count against our contingency or?
This would, the elevator one does not.
That, because it's specified.
Right.
And maybe that's how we did it, so we could do.
Yeah, this is just a way of breaking down your contingency, really, you know. So if this one's sitting with 50,000 in it, you can only carry 120,000 total. This one's gonna take away from the other one. But I don't know.
I guess find out more information on it, because that's not gonna hurt it.
No, ain't gonna hurt nothing.
and
I'd rather put everybody's feet to the fire than more.
like I said, in respect to budgets, though, you know, if the money can go into that fund, and the sheriff's department every year says, I want this much money out of that fund in 5 years from now, or 7 years from now, or whatever he or we determine to be a replacement schedule for vehicles there, they would still, what I'm saying is they'd still have to account for it in their budget, say that I'm planning this much every year out of that fund. And when year 28 comes or 25 comes or whatever, we're gonna replace this vehicle.
He's planning his capital outlays out of that fund
Yeah.
instead of adding it to his budget.
Because he's not allowed to do it. He doesn't have a fund he can do it with, you know.
No, he's just gotta add it to his budget on that year, and then next year it won't be in there. Unless he needed a vehicle every year, and then he would add that much to his budget for vehicle replacement. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to get to home plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, that is the end of that. So the only thing you got left is the unfinished old business, which is that survey that Jim got, Jim Jones. And then he's not here to explain it, so I'll try my best, which is the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners has the planning districts gather data you can help me with this, Jan, if I get this wrong. And then they compile a report, the last one was done in 2019. It contains information on how counties manage various aspects of their employees. And so the very first handout was a worksheet that has each of the counties in the first column on the screen. And then the second column is whether or not the commissioners were eligible for the health insurance benefit. And then the next columns talk about whether it was a single percentage paid by the county, what the amount was, and then the family percentage, and then the cost of that family percentage. So there's 2 pages to this one, and then the next item that was added to this was the details, and this is based on age. And so I honestly can't give you a good explanation of this because I've never been in an insurance policy that was based on age, except life insurance. So I'm not sure if the absence of data in there reflects the fact that these others aren't familiar with it either. But if like Hyde County has the premium there for a single at age 25, then they must have a different premium for the 35-year-olds, the 45-year-olds, and 55-year-olds. So that's not something I'm familiar with. You guys are you? I mean, I remember people always said the insurance was more if you were older, but.
That's the way ours is specifically, and it jumps every 5 years.
Yep.
So Mike and I hit 55, our premiums jumped. And so now we'll be stuck at this premium level now, except for the.
Are you considered a group or is that like?
No, individual.
See, that's what I was getting at with a group. I always thought
I've
you
never
could
seen
just,
this with a group, but maybe they
blend
do
them
that,
together.
so you get the
Oh.
other people in there. So you don't have to pay, because it's like, if you have 100 people at 55 and 5 at 25, the 25-year-olds are paying a lot more money than if they were,
Right.
they were the younger age. So I don't know, that's, they maybe have a lot of younger people or something that they don't have that.
yeah, without knowing what they're really doing there, it's hard for
I
me
didn't
to
understand it
speculate.
when I read it.
Doug, the reason for the determined flat premium for the group is because of that, was it composite rate? Is that what that terminology was, where they put everybody together, they figure them all up, and then they figure an average rate is what that composite rate amounts to, it's my understanding. That
So it literally is just blending them all together.
Yeah. And basically they're taking the total amount of premiums and dividing them by how many employees you've got to come up with a flat rate premium, but there is no flat rate premium in insurance. The older you get, the more expensive you are, and
If you're over 50, being in a group benefit, you can get a couple bucks off if I'm 25, and I'm working in a group that has all 55-year-old people. And then you would want to split it out like that. But I think most of them just grouping.
I honestly consider myself to be really lucky to not be singled out as a diabetic anymore. I'm just in the 55 to 60 age group. But before the ACA, I was singled out as a diabetic, and my premiums were getting horrible before ACA.
Yeah, we went through that too.
Yep.
So anyway, those are the documents. Like I said, I don't really know that this age one is very informative, what you guys are talking about.
Well, county by county, there's quite a few of them here pay 100%. Some of them pay a set amount towards single for county commissioners. And some-
30 pay, 60 now.
30 pay.
Out of the, yeah.
Yeah, but some of them don't pay full, they pay up to 625. Pay up.
And that is true for their entire group. It's not just the county commissioners,
Right,
that's what they do for all their employees. So
Right.
however the employees are treated is how the other ones are treated, was what I found when I called, ones that I called, they didn't call much, but. However, however they treated their employees, the county commissioners were treated the same.
Well, I think we made determinations on this, it's more of an informative thing, like what we wanna do down the road, or what we wanna do down the road. So, yeah, take that home and read it, study it, analyze it, whatever, and I think we've set a date for when we're gonna face that. deal. I would entertain a motion in for an executive session, we have a couple things. Should not take long.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Want to take 5 while I shut everything off?
Yeah, I think we could actually maybe get out of here at 5 o'clock. Thursday, guys.
You got all of them.
Yeah.
I have a city council meeting.
Yeah, you gotta get out of here. That's what another meeting.
It's not till 7, so I got time.
I went early this morning, I went to White Lake and Washington Springs, and I got back home at 11 o'clock, and then I don't have to go nowhere.